Chapter 1937 Fight. Who are you? 2. She could only hope that they would safely pass through this ordeal. If necessary, she would have to do everything in her power to take little Chinga and this Zila away. At this moment, Wang Ting waved his hand. In an instant, in the sky, several immense figures appeared out of nowhere. A dark red blood crow. A fierce giant scorpion covered in iron armor. A peculiar beast as white as jade. Caw. The dark red blood crow spread its wings, unleashing waves of endless flames and propelling itself forward with feathers as hard as gold and iron. Roar. The ferocious giant scorpion roared, and a green flame erupted, forming an attack to meet the enemy. The strange and snow-white giant beast, despite its innocent appearance, was the most terrifying of them all. A majestic aura at the domain stage enveloped it, and a radiant yellow light condensed into a formidable beam atop its two pointed horns, shooting straight out. The hideous expressions on the members of the Swift Wing team froze. What in the world was all this? In an instant, they felt that things were not going well. However, the attacks were already launched, and they couldn't retract them. They had no choice but to face the enemy head-on. Boom! In the sky, the collisions of these attacks erupted with terrifying roars of force energy, sweeping in all directions and stirring up the sand and dust below. Boom! A humming sound reverberated in the air, and it seemed like the entire space was momentarily locked in place. Dust hung in the air, and the clashes froze for a moment, halting the spread of the residual force. But soon, everything returned to normal. The explosions from the collisions burst out completely. Little White and the metal armor flaming scorpion blocked their attacks. Blocked the attacks of the two opponents. Although they were only mid-tier Imperial-level star beasts, their strength was formidable enough to withstand attacks from Heaven Stage martial warriors. Elizabeth, on the other hand, sent one of the Heaven Stage martial warriors reeling, leaving him in a sorry state and on the verge of injury. This man was none other than the Divine Spirit Master, Tang Cheng. He was one of the most powerful martial warriors in the Swift Wing team. His spiritual abilities were extremely adept. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to withstand Elizabeth's attacks. Now, having been forced back several kilometers, Tang Cheng wore a gloomy expression. He fixed his gaze firmly on Elizabeth, revealing a deep sense of wariness. Meanwhile, Wang Ting also took action, using his five-element fist to confront the attacks of the silver-horned man. Even Kang Yu was taken aback by what she witnessed. She hadn't expected Zeli to have so many hidden tricks up his sleeve. Were these three enormous creatures his spiritual pets? With such formidable spiritual pets, Zeli had certainly concealed his true might quite well. No wonder he had been so confident in insisting on keeping the enemy here. It turned out he had such powerful hidden cards. Various thoughts raced through her mind, but with the attacks of the two Heaven Stage opponents closing in, she had no time for further contemplation. Boom! At this moment, Kang Yu relaxed a bit. She looked at the approaching assaults and a cold sparkle flashed in her eyes. She swiftly took action. A battle sword appeared in her hand. With the strength of poison coursing within her, it transformed into streaks of emerald green sword lights. Sizzle! The sword lights were terrifying, and they were imbued with a potent venomous power, causing a sizzling sound upon contact. The assaults from the two universe stage opponents began to show signs of dispersing. Their expressions turned solemn as they hadn't expected this snake woman to possess such strength. It seemed they had underestimated her earlier. In the blink of an eye, the members of the Swift Wing team seemed completely bewildered by the swift turnaround. No one expected the tables to turn so quickly. They had just appeared confident in their victory, but now it seemed uncertain whether they could prevail against their opponents. These three snake men were outrageously powerful. What's more, this Cosmos Stage snake men had three extremely powerful spiritual beasts. One of them was at the peak of the Imperial level, which was equivalent to the Universe Stage. This was cheating, right? Was this something a native could have? Even the talented students of their stellar academies might not possess three spiritual pets of such immense power. Who are you? The silver-horned man stared at Wang Ting, his voice cold. He couldn't believe this was a simple native snakeman. Not many people in the stellar academies knew about Wang Ting's three spiritual pets. Only the universe stage martial warriors he met in the chaotic Uncharted saw Little White and the others. Naturally, those individuals wouldn't go around spreading the news. Hence, these people didn't recognize Wang Ting. "I'm just a snake man whom you all look down upon," Wang Teng replied indifferently. "It's impossible. How could a native possess such power?" The silver-horned man completely disbelieved his words. "Believe it or not, it doesn't matter. Either way, you're all going to die," Wang Teng replied. "You're too arrogant." The silver-horned man's eyes shot out a chilling light, extremely cold. "Do you think you can win against us just because of 3 spiritual pets? Well, no, after we try." Wang Teng didn't want to waste any more words and charged directly at the silver-horned man. "Me." The silver-horned man snorted coldly and said, "I'd like to see how capable you are." He was unwilling to admit that he might be inferior to a mere Cosmos stage martial warrior. In that instant, a cold light burst from his eyes, and he pointed his finger at Wang Ting. "Fire Silk Finger." A blazing red flame suddenly bellowed out from his fingertip, turning into a pillar of fire, rushing straight towards Wang Ting. Boom! Under this one finger, the void trembled as if it were about to collapse. Wherever the fire passed, the temperature skyrocketed, and the surrounding air distorted. Chapter 1938 Fight. Who are you? 3. Wang Ting's eyes narrowed slightly. In his view, this was secondary. After all, compared to the divine flames he possessed, such temperatures were nothing. The real danger was the faint red radiance hidden within the pillar of fire, almost imperceptible unless carefully observed. Fortunately, Wang Ting had a keen sensitivity to flames, and he instantly detected the danger of this attack. "My battle technique is at the universe stage. Can you withstand it?" The silver-horned man sneered. Wang Ting sneered in his heart. His gaze flickered and he raised his finger too. He had never lost to anyone in terms of battle techniques. This was just a universe stage battle technique. How dare he boast about it? Tyrant's finger. A golden glow condensed in his hand, quickly forming a small golden sphere. Then, a narrow but intense golden beam shot out from it. This finger, majestic, overpowering. With an unstoppable force, it shot out and collided directly with the opponent's pillar of fire. Boom! A fierce collision occurred between the two beams in mid-air. Suddenly, a tiny red glow shot out from the fire pillar, resembling a small fire silkworm. It emitted a sharp, piercing sound as it headed towards Wang Ting. "Ha ha ha, my fire silk finger's true killing power lies in that fire silkworm. The fire silkworm is condensed from the power of the domain. Can a mere Cosmos stage native like you control domain power?" The silver-horned man laughed heartily, still filled with a hint of disdain in his words. Boom! As his words fell, a loud rumble erupted from within that tiny golden light beam. A surge of domain power burst forth, transforming into countless sharp intents that swept toward the small fire silkworm. The fire silkworm seemed to emit a mournful cry and instantly disintegrated under the onslaught of these sharp intents. The fire pillar condensed by the silver-horned man also disintegrated in an instant. However, the finger-thin golden light beam shot through the layers of flames and headed straight toward the silver-horned man. How is this possible? The silver-horned man's expression changed. He hurriedly dodged and moved sideways by 3 inches to avoid the attack. Swoosh! However, it was too late. The golden light moved at an incredible speed, piercing through his left shoulder and creating a burst of blood. This was only the surface. Within the wound, countless sharp conchs erupted, ready to engulf his body as if it could destroy everything. The silver-horned man's face changed dramatically, filled with disbelief. He immediately pulled back and hurriedly used his force to push the sharp conchs out of his body. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief and take out a healing pill to swallow. Third-rank metal domain. He stared at Wang Ting with deep apprehension in his eyes. He couldn't believe that this Cosmos stage snake man actually held such strength. Even at the Cosmos stage, he mastered a third-rank domain. Just now, he also used the power of a third-rank domain. However, it seemed that the opponent's understanding of the domain power was even more profound and comprehensive than his own. Otherwise, under the same level of domain power, the opponent wouldn't have been able to defeat his domain power so easily. Damn it! I underestimated him. The silver-horned man was filled with regret, but more than that, he was seething with anger. This native dared to harm him. He was seeking death. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he summoned a war spear, and the power of his fire force burst forth, enveloping the spear with boundless flames. Kill! A loud shout erupted from his mouth, and the silver-horned man charged fiercely at Wang Teng. The spear in his hand kept thrusting into the void, transforming countless blazes into serpent-like entities that lunged towards Wang Teng. As these fire serpents moved, the temperature soared rapidly, generating waves of scorching air that twisted the atmosphere. The ground beneath them became scorching hot as the blazes swept across the sand. Wang Teng's eyes flashed with determination. This man's strength was undoubtedly formidable. His previous display of domain power hadn't fully unleashed its potential yet, and Wang Teng couldn't gauge its true extent. He had to be cautious. The man possessed exceptional combat instincts. Even in that situation, he managed to evade crucial attacks. This was a feat not achievable by ordinary martial warriors. Wang Teng never misjudged those stronger than him. He was a heaven-stage martial warrior and a talented student of stellar academies. Wang Teng didn't think that this was all he had. Facing the man's attack, Wang Teng didn't back down. He summoned an ice-blue long spear. This was a universe-level weapon. The universe-level ice element spear was among the treasures left behind by the Flaming River Universe Lord. In the current moment, Wang Teng's ice talent had reached the immortal level and he held the divine frost physique. He was an extraordinary ice genius. Facing a fire element warrior, he couldn't help but be eager to test the extent to which he could unleash his ice element power. In an instant, an intense chill swept out from Wang Teng, and then, with a step in the void, he morphed into an ice-blue radiance, charging towards the silver-horned man. He thrust his long spear. Universe Stage Ice Battle Technique. Ice Devil Spear. The spear radiance fragmented into countless icy rays, shrouding the entire sky, colliding with the fiery snakes formed by the man's spear, in a dazzling display of power. Boom! 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 A violent roar echoed through the sky, resonating endlessly. His ice force, enhanced by his two talents, was exceptionally freezing, surpassing the typical ice element warriors. It swept in all directions, even freezing the silver-horned man's attack. Such intense cold. Kang Yu looked at Wang Teng, her eyes filled with amazement. This guy held those unusual flames, and now he displayed such formidable ice element attributes. Coupled with the dominance and sharpness demonstrated earlier, he already wielded 3 different types of elemental forces. Chapter 1939 Fight. Who are you? 4. Was he really from the Snake Men race? This question appeared in her mind again. The members of the Swift Wing team were astounded too. This Snake Man was a little heaven-defying. Even talented students of the stellar academies like them might not be able to master this kind of ice attribute. Little Chinga, who was watching from the side, was dumbfounded. When she heard explanations from Kang Yu earlier, she didn't have such deep feelings. Now, seeing Wang Ting in combat, she finally realized how powerful her father truly was. Her eyes showed a mix of confusion and deep amazement. Was this really his daddy? When a person behaves too differently from their usual self, even the closest people could start to doubt if they are the same person. She suddenly remembered Wang Ting's recent behavior, which did seem somewhat different from before. Unless, little Chinga's face turned pale as if she had realized something but was unwilling to accept that fact. No, she tightly clenched her fist, her gaze fixed firmly on Wang Teng. At this moment, all those fire serpents had been frozen, forming ice sculptures in the sky. A figure surrounded by ice approached slowly. His clothes fluttered without any wind. Wang Ting held his long spear pointing downward. It shimmered with an icy light as if he were preparing a powerful move. It made others uneasy. Is this all the strength you have? Wang Ting spoke calmly. The last time, the circumstances were special, and he got tricked by the other party. But now, from the time of that encounter until the present, his strength had undergone significant changes in a short period. Also, he could release Little White, Elizabeth, and the metal armor flaming scorpion to restrain the other Heaven Stage martial warriors. He even had the help of Kang Yu, a martial warrior at the peak of the Heaven Stage. In a one-on-one battle, he had no fear of Heaven Stage martial warriors. This guy. The silver-horned man hastily retreated, avoiding the chilling cold. His expression fluctuated as he looked at Wang Ting. The extreme cold discomforted him greatly, and he felt a deep sense of apprehension. Wang Ting's words only fueled his frustration and anger. A bitter resentment flashed in his eyes. As a Heaven Stage martial warrior, being pushed to such an extent by a Cosmos Stage native was a great humiliation. Let's see how long your force can hold out. I don't believe that a Cosmos Stage martial warrior like you can outlast me, a Heaven Stage martial warrior. The silver-horned man gritted his teeth. His gaze turned cold. Wang Ting suddenly chuckled. There was an ambiguous smile on his face. When was he ever afraid of having a force showdown? This guy was just too naive. Without further ado, the silver-horned man didn't waste words. His spear erupted once again with flames and the power of domain swirling around it. Wang Ting's expression didn't change. Ice force erupted from his body and the spear cut through the sky like a dragon. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the two of them engaged in a fierce battle in the sky. The ice-blue power of the ice force clashed continuously with the fiery red power of the fire force. The entire sky seemed to be divided into two halves, with ice and fire each occupying one half, creating a spectacular scene. Even the desert on the ground now seemed half-charred and half-ice encased, giving it an exceptionally strange appearance. The destructive power of their battle was astonishing. The members of the Swift Wing team were completely stunned by the intensity of their battle. They stared at Wang Ting grimly. They no longer dared to underestimate this so-called native of the Snake Clan. Even those few spiritual pets presented a formidable challenge. With those 3 spiritual pets entangling them, the team members couldn't break free. Otherwise, they could have assisted the silver-horned man. Among the 3 spirit beasts, while 2 of them were only mid-tier Imperial level, they proved to be quite troublesome, refusing to engage the team members directly but rather attempting to stall them. Alongside them was an ultimate stage Imperial level spiritual pet that would come to their aid when the mid-tier Imperial level spiritual pets couldn't hold out, making it difficult for the team members to eliminate them. The Snake Woman was powerful too. She managed to hold back 2 Heaven Stage martial warriors. The sky erupted into a chaotic battle, with intense clashes resonating continuously. The terrifying energy caused the surrounding void to shatter, creating rifts in space. The silver-horned man's expression turned ugly when he saw this scene. It's time to end this. He coldly spoke, releasing an immensely powerful domain energy that emanated in all directions. This unique energy formed into a massive crimson domain, pulling Wang Ting into its midst. Oh no! Kang Yu looked at the battle between Wang Ting and the silver-horned man, her countenance filled with worry. The opponent's domain was extremely powerful. Zeli was indeed strong, but he was only at the Cosmos stage and was likely inferior in terms of domain power compared to the extraterrestrial human. Ha ha ha, that Snake Man native is dead. He actually forced our boss to release his domain, right, sneered. The other members of the Swift Wing team also wore smirks, seemingly convinced that Wang Ting was bound to lose. Seeing their expressions, Kang Yu's countenance grew even more solemn. She became increasingly worried about Wang Ting. Little Chinga's face turned slightly pale. She was torn between worrying about her father and the complex feelings of question that had arisen within her. Inside the domain, the silver-horned man looked at Wang Ting with boiling murderous intent in his eyes. He spoke slowly. I have to admit, your power is indeed impressive. But I don't have the patience to wait for you to deplete your energy. So, I will now invite you to your death. Chapter 1940 Fight. Who are you? 5. Boom. As his words fell, he waved his spear, and the endless power of flames converged around him, morphing into a terrifying fire behemoth. This fire behemoth was covered in scales and had a single horn on its forehead. Upon closer inspection, one would notice that the horn on its forehead was strikingly similar to the silver horn on the silver-horned man's forehead. The only difference was that one was made of condensed flames, while the other was a natural feature. Sixth rank domain. Wang Ting's eyes shimmered. He glanced around him and immediately sensed that his opponent's domain had reached the 6th rank. Roar. The fire behemoth roared, releasing a terrifying pressure. Its cold gaze was fixed on Wang Ting as it rushed straight at him. Wang Ting turned serious. The power of his domain surged forth, morphing into a massive frost domain. An endless force of ice and snow swept across the area, forming a frozen landscape that pushed aside the crimson domain. In an instant, within a radius of several kilometers, everything turned into a world of ice and snow. The scope displayed by this ice domain seemed to be on par with the opponent's crimson domain. The people outside saw this scene and were astounded. This domain, the members of the Swift Wing team were wide-eyed and filled with doubt as if they saw a ghost. Even Kang Yu was appalled. She hadn't expected that Zeli could create an ice domain that could rival the opponent's. In the frost domain. Within the ice domain, Wang Ting stood atop the frozen landscape, his appearance returning to its original state. Countless ice and snow surrounded him, making him seem like a king within this frozen realm. Roar. The power of the domain coalesced within the icy landscape, forming a colossal hornless dragon. This wasn't the real ice domain but a manifestation created through Wang Ting's domain power. The ice hornless dragon was one of the most powerful universe behemoths within the ice element, possessing extraordinary natural talents and a deep connection with the laws of origin in the universe. Transforming his domain power into the appearance of an ice hornless dragon was the most fitting choice. Moreover, he had encountered a real ice hornless dragon before, so he was very familiar with their characteristics. Simulating one was an effortless task for him. The massive ice hornless dragon coiled behind Wang Ting, its colossal icy head slowly emerging and casting a looming presence over him. It was lifelike and appeared majestic. When the opposing fire behemoth saw this colossal dragon, it hesitated for a moment, and its eyes seemed to reveal a trace of human-like fear. However, Wang Ting did not give it the chance to react. Go. A cold, resolute voice suddenly resounded throughout the icy world, as if the entire frozen landscape was filled with an aura of chilling determination. Roar. The ice hornless dragon roared, and its colossal form turned into a streak of icy blue lightning, swiftly charging towards the fiery behemoth. It carried with it an overwhelming force of ice and snow, ready to confront the fiery behemoth. Roar. The fire behemoth, realizing that there was no room for retreat, responded with a resounding roar. Its domain power erupted to its fullest, and within that domain, a mysterious energy seemed to emerge. The power of origin. This was the power of origin of fire. As this terrifying power of origin emanated from the fire behemoth, a hint of tricky appeared in its eyes. It then surged forward once more, meeting the ice hornless dragon head-on. Wang Ting let out a cold snort, and a peculiar ice-blue pattern flashed in his eyes. Without any visible action, a trace of power of origin surged within the ice hornless dragon. Even before summoning the ice hornless dragon, he had prepared to hide a trace of ice origin power within it. If the opponent only used their domain power, this power of origin wouldn't come into play. However, if the opponent genuinely comprehended the power of origin, this ice origin power would be his ultimate move. Fortunately, he guessed correctly. The silver-horned man had indeed comprehended the power of the origin of flame. As expected, the Stellar Academy students mustn't be underestimated. Unfortunately, just as the other party was planning to catch Wang Ting off his guard, when Wang Ting released his power of origin, the other party had no time to react. Boom! In the next moment, the two colossal creatures collided with a thunderous roar. The power of domains collided. The power of origins collided. All the power, at this moment, erupted at that focal point, but the struggle between the two forces compressed everything within it. As a result, at the center, a spherical energy field was formed where the conflicting ice and fire energy fiercely eroded and battled against each other, forming a terrifying energy vortex. If it were to explode, it would be extremely horrifying. Fortunately, one of the energies gradually gained the upper hand, overpowering the other. From the outside, it was visible that within the central sphere, the fiery red was being gradually consumed by the icy blue, retreating to one corner. The opposing fire behemoth was also crumbling as the flames on its body were frozen, and its scorching heat was dispersed. Roar. The fire behemoth gave an earth-shattering roar. Unfortunately, it was all in vain. Boom. In the next moment, a terrifying explosion echoed as the energy sphere at the center finally burst open. The power of ice overwhelmed everything as it surged forth, instantly engulfing the fire behemoth. Roar. The fire behemoth let out a final mournful cry, and its colossal form gradually dissipated. From the perspective of onlookers, the fiery domain was also crumbling bit by bit. The power of ice and snow swept over like an unstoppable winter, freezing everything in its path. Chapter 1941. It's debt collection time. 1. Silence. A profound silence fell over the land. The members of the Swift-Wing team were left in awe, ceasing their battles and turning their gazes towards the frozen area on the other side. The situation spoke for itself. The Snake Man's domain suppressed their leader's domain. The members of the Swift-Wing team were stunned, their scalps tingling, unable to believe what had just transpired. How was this possible? Their leader was a heaven-stage martial warrior, a talented student of stellar academies. How could a cosmos-stage native like him have a domain stronger than their leader's? Also, they knew that their leader was a genius who grasped the power of origin. The power of origin was the hallmark of a universe-stage martial warrior. Thus, a martial warrior who grasped the power of origin was many times stronger than a martial warrior who didn't. How could this indigenous snake man surpass their leader, who had mastered the power of origin? The members of the Swift-Wing team would never have thought that a snake man would possess such a powerful power of origin. Even Kang Yu, her face concealed behind her veil, couldn't help but reveal a trace of astonishment. She looked toward the frozen area with a shaken heart. Was Zeli so powerful? Little Chinga clenched her fists tightly. Although she didn't want to see her father in trouble, the more powerful Wang Ting demonstrated himself to be, the more uncertain she felt. A sense of impending doom grew stronger within her. Amidst the stares of everyone, the domain in the sky gradually dissipated, and a figure finally emerged. This figure was dressed in ancient attire, with long black hair flowing freely. From the waist down, his serpentine lower body wrapped and slithered, giving him an otherworldly, godlike appearance. It was Wang Teng, who had reinstated his snakeman's body. At this moment, he still didn't want to reveal his true identity in front of little Chinga and the others. The expressions of the members of the Swift-Wing team changed again. Their pupils constricted. Wang Teng's appearance shattered their last hope. As expected, the one who lost was their leader. At this moment, they didn't dare to underestimate this snake man. They treated him as a terrifying presence. There was a frightening ability hidden below his cosmos stage. Wang Teng didn't pay attention to their thoughts. His gaze landed on the frozen sculpture in front of him, and a faint smile curled on his lips. He raised one hand and clenched it tightly. Boom! An explosion occurred. The ice statue exploded abruptly, shattering into countless ice shards that scattered in all directions. Amidst the countless ice fragments, a figure was sent flying. On his body, a set of armor was in tatters, and his body underneath the armor was covered in wounds and blood. Splurt! Under the intense impact of the explosion, the man spurted out several mouthfuls of blood, and his face turned extremely pale. The silver-horned man widened his eyes in astonishment, full of disbelief, as if he was still in shock from the impact of the previous blow. You! His gaze fixed on Wang Ting in the distance, and his pupils contracted dramatically. In the domain just now, he saw Wang Teng returning to his true form. Now, he had transformed into a snake man again. This bastard deceived everyone. At this moment, he finally understood why he lost. He recognized Wang Ting. 7th Stellar Academy, Star Rankings talent Wang Ting. However, he couldn't understand why this Wang Ting would disguise himself as a snake man and even be with 2 snake women. Even more puzzling was how this Star Rankings genius could be so incredibly powerful. Didn't he just enter the Stellar Academy? Yet, he was able to defeat an older student like him. This was a little outrageous. Could this be the true strength of a Star Ranking genius? A sense of inexpressible frustration welled up within him, shattering all of his pride into pieces. He had looked down on the natives, but in the face of a genius from the star rankings, his arrogance seemed so laughable. This was an enormous blow. At this moment, Wang Ting sneered and suddenly disappeared on the spot. The silver-horned man's face turned pale, and his heart skipped a beat. He knew without a doubt that his opponent wouldn't let him go so easily. But at this moment, he was still being shaken by the violent explosion, and his body was unable to move, let alone dodge. "Leader, be careful." The members of the Swift-Wing team in the distance shouted when they saw this scene. They wanted to rush across to rescue the silver-horned man, but there was no way that Elizabeth and the others would allow them to do so. "Stop them." Elizabeth, being the most powerful in the small group, naturally took command. Little White and Metal Armor Flaming Scorpion immediately released their most powerful attacks at the Swift-Wing team martial warriors opposite them. Boom! Little White formed 3,000 Bloodcrow clones and surrounded the pig-human race martial warrior. Flaming feathers shot out from the Bloodcrow clones. The pig-human race martial fighter didn't expect this mid-tier Imperial-level spiritual pet to have such a powerful skill. He had nowhere to hide in front of the flaming feathers. He let out a strange cry and force surged out of his body, forming a defense shield. Boom, boom, boom. Countless flaming feathers struck the defensive shield, causing it to vibrate and crack. The pig-human race martial fighter was preoccupied and couldn't spare any attention to help his leader. On the other side, the metal armor flaming scorpion erupted, releasing endless green flames, and entrapping a member of the Swift-Wing team. Chapter 1942. It's debt collection time. 2. Elizabeth once again condensed a beam of light, locking onto Tang Cheng, making him hesitant to make any rash moves. Kang Yu managed to hold back the other two Heaven Stage martial warriors. The silver-horned man saw this and fell into despair. Just then, a sonic boom came from behind him. He forcibly turned his head to look and saw that Wang Ting was holding a purple square brick, radiating purple lightning. Its appearance was unclear to those outside, but it was flying straight toward his head. Bang! A muffled sound echoed, and the silver-horned man felt a sharp pain in his head, causing him to become dizzy and his vision darkened. Then, a series of crackling sounds followed, and before he could recover from the pain, he experienced the sensation of lightning surging through his brain. What an exhilarating feeling! The silver-horned man rolled his eyes. He shuddered and gradually lost the ability to resist. Wang Ting's movements did not pause as he continued to strike with the lightning slap, venting his pent-up frustration. Bang, 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 swoop. Boom. How dare you sneak an attack on me? Bang, 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 swoop. Boom. How dare you sneak an attack on me? Bang, 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 swoop. Boom. You thought you could use me as a stepping stone and almost killed me by pushing me into the vortex of the airflow. Today, I'll return the favor to all of you. The dull sounds and lightning crackling continued to reverberate in the sky. The voice of Wang Ting echoed in the ears of the silver-horned man. The silver-horned man was dizzy, but when he heard Wang Ting's words, he was appalled. It was him. It was that person. The person who was supposed to be dead. The silver-horned man finally understood why Wang Ting hated them so much. The person whom they used as a stepping stone and pushed into the vortex of the airflow was none other than Wang Ting himself. What kind of luck was this? They had randomly chosen an unlucky person to be their stepping stone, and it turned out to be such a difficult person. If the other party had died in the vortex, it would have been acceptable. A deceased star rankings genius wouldn't pose much of a threat. However, the fact that he didn't die and had come seeking revenge was a completely different story. Now, he finally understood what it felt like to run into a formidable opponent. Wang Ting was an absolute powerhouse. Even if they were Heaven Stage martial warriors, they stood no chance against him. The silver-horned man wanted to inform his teammates and urge them to flee. Wang Teng's strength was beyond extraordinary. In the previous encounter, Wang Ting had only used one type of force and still managed to defeat him. Rumors had it that Wang Ting possessed not just one but even more powerful types of forces. Moreover, he had displayed his power of origin earlier. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been defeated. A martial warrior with the power of origin was not someone most of his teammates could contend with. What's more, Wang Ting had 3 powerful spiritual pets and a snake woman at the peak of the heaven stage. Hence, he no longer had the confidence to continue fighting. His confidence was completely shattered. Suddenly, he realized that he couldn't speak. His surroundings were locked down by spiritual power, and his voice couldn't escape. Wang Ting's lips curled into a cold smile. He intended to take down each of these individuals, both physically and mentally. It was time to collect his debt. There was no possibility of reconciliation between them. Their enmity was unresolvable. Today, this place would become the burial ground for the members of the Swift-Wing team. The silver-horned man's eyes finally showed a hint of fear. He saw the murderous intent in Wang Teng's eyes and was further shaken by his helpless situation. Help! He opened his mouth and wanted to plead for help. However, Wang Teng's lightning slap struck down once more, denying him the chance to speak. The members of the Swift-Wing team suddenly found this scene a little familiar. Where had they seen it before? But they couldn't remember. In this chaotic moment, their minds were preoccupied with more pressing matters. Thus, this thought only flashed through their minds and they didn't pay attention to it anymore. It's time to end this. Wang Teng muttered under his breath, his voice reaching the ears of the silver-horned man and provoking panic to grip him completely. No. A scream erupted from the silver-horned man's mouth. It became his final sound in this world. With his other hand, Wang Teng thrust the ice-blue spear forward, piercing through the silver-horned man's heart. Endless coldness flowed into his body, freezing his vitality and soul. The silver-horned man, dead. He stared with wide eyes, filled with unwillingness and regret. All of this was frozen in ice. Wang Ting lifted the silver-horned man's body into the air with a single thrust of his spear, his gaze sweeping over the stunned members of the Swift-Wing team. The expressions on all their faces froze, replaced by horror. Leader. The few remaining members of the Swift-Wing team roared in anger, their eyes filled with hatred as they looked at Wang Teng. It's your turn now. Wang Teng's expression turned ice-cold, and he swung his long spear, throwing the silver-horned man's body to the ground with an echoing boom. The body shattered into a pile of ice shards. Then, he rushed forward once more. Boom! A thunderous roar echoed as Wang Ting's long spear thrust towards the female martial warrior named Jiang Yu. The metal armor Flaming Scorpion's ability was still a little weaker. It couldn't hold the other party back anymore. Moreover, the words spoken by this woman earlier had made him extremely disgusted. What did she mean by seductive and cheap goods? Our little Chinga is so pure. How can she be the same as the B** chase outside? No, that's not the point. The point is, can she insult little Chinga like this? Anger burned in Wang Ting's heart, and he showed no mercy in his attack. His domain power erupted, crashing down on the opponent. Jiang Yu's expression changed slightly. She didn't expect that after dealing with their leader, the first person the opponent would target would be her. However, she quickly sensed that the Snake Man's domain wasn't too powerful. 5th rank domain. Jiang Yu was puzzled. However, she didn't let down her guard. After all, their captain had been defeated by this Snake Man. She composed herself, tightly gripping a war sword in her hand, and unleashed her domain power. Water domain, 6th rank. Ripples that resembled waves spread in all directions, creating a world of water within a radius of hundreds of miles. At this moment, Jiang Yu unleashed her full power without holding back. She comprehended that when a lion hunts a rabbit, it must go all out. Moreover, she felt that she was in a weaker position. There was no doubt about the Snake Man's ability since he was able to defeat their leader. She might not be his match. Boom! Her sword swung, transforming into countless blue sword lights that surged out from her domain. It was like a curtain of sword rain descending upon Wang Ting. This scene was undoubtedly spectacular, with countless blue sword lights converging together, densely packed like a curtain falling from the sky. They sealed off all directions, making it impossible to avoid. Wang Ting squinted. He activated his 5th rank frost domain to its maximum and the ice domain appeared again. It circled above his head. Roar! The ice hornless dragon roared, and its massive body swept through the heavens and earth. The countless blue sword lights were instantly frozen in mid-air, unable to descend any further. How is this possible? Jiang Yu was flabbergasted. She exclaimed, "How can a fifth-rank domain be so powerful?" Wang Ting coldly smiled, paying no attention to her. He persisted to unleash the power of ice, and the ice-hornless dragon bellowed as it surged towards Jiang Yu. His frost domain had reached the 5th level of the actualization phase. It was many times more powerful than a normal 5th-level domain. If not, he wouldn't have been able to defeat the silver-horned man's 6th-level domain. The higher the level of the domain, the greater the gap. The difference between the 6th rank and the 5th rank was enormous. Fortunately, Wang Teng's frost domain had reached the actualization phase, so he was able to offset this difference. This was why Jiang Yu experienced that his domain was so powerful. At this moment, facing the howling ice hornless dragon, Jiang Yu's expression instantly became extremely solemn, but it seemed she hadn't given up yet. Boom! She suddenly emitted an extremely brilliant green light, and when the power of the ice enveloped her, it suddenly burst forth. Heh! Wang Ting squinted. He was surprised. In the frozen area ahead, a dazzling green radiance burst out, and thick branches quickly grew out, breaking through the ice and even entwining around it, provoking the power of the ice to rapidly diminish. Chapter 1943 Ruthless. One after another. 1. Above the icy expanse, numerous thick branches sprouted and entwined over the ice. This scene was truly magnificent. It was as if in the endless world of ice and snow, a sudden burst of green vitality had emerged. It was incredibly strange. Crack! Numerous cracking sounds were heard. The ice entangled by those branches immediately displayed cracks as if the coldness within had been absorbed, losing its supporting force, and eventually shattered with a resounding crash. It absorbed it. Wang Teng's expression slightly froze, finding it somewhat unbelievable. At this moment, as the ice shattered, surrounded by countless emerald green branches, a figure slowly stepped out from the rear. It was none other than Jiang Yu. However, she was vastly different from before at this moment. With branches surrounding her, she appeared like a forest maiden, as if she could control all plant life. This peculiar sensation was incredibly intense. The martial warriors from the Swift Wing team were stunned. Jiang Yu. Wright looked at the sudden emergence of this woman in astonishment, feeling a mixture of familiarity and strangeness. The others felt the same way. This Jiang Yu was completely different from the person they knew normally. Jiang Yu's long, wavy hair swayed as if by an invisible breeze, and she stared at Wang Ting with an icy expression. She spoke, saying, "You can't kill me. Master, this lady is a little troublesome." The metal armor flaming scorpion flew over and lifted Wang Teng, placing him on its head. It stared intently at Jiang Yu as it spoke in a serious tone. "Can't kill you." Wang Teng merely smiled faintly, his face revealing little emotion as he slowly articulated his speculation. "Your ability seems to be some form of wood element power, right? Can you manipulate plants? Do these plants also absorb various forms of energy? Let me guess. Your absorption isn't unconditional. Instead, you transfer various forms of energy into the plant bodies, and I assume these plant bodies aren't entirely unaffected." Wang Ting's gaze fell on the plants behind Jiang Yu, the ones that had absorbed the power of the ice earlier. They were slowly wriggling and burrowing beneath the desert. Jiang Yu's expression changed slightly. She had intended to attract the attention of this snake man and quietly move those ice-absorbing plants underground, allowing them to wither and die on their own. She hadn't expected her plan to be uncovered so quickly. This man had remarkably keen observational skills. If you want to fight, then let's fight. You're only at the cosmos stage. I don't assume that your force will still support you after experiencing a battle. Jiang Yu didn't respond to Wang Ting's words and her gaze turned cold suddenly. Boom. Without making any visible movements, the branches abruptly surged towards Wang Ting from all directions. Wang Ting's expression remained unchanged as he stood on the back of the metal armor flaming scorpion, calmly watching the sweeping branches. The ice-blue long spear in his hand had already disappeared. "Daddy." Little Chinga's expression changed slightly when she saw this scene. She couldn't help but worry for him. Until his true identity was confirmed, she still regarded him as her father and she was always concerned. Kang Yu, on the other hand, had a subtle change in expression, seemingly thinking of something. Her gaze turned toward the woman. There was a mocking grin at the corner of her mouth. Die! Jiang Yu shouted loudly, and her beautiful face was now filled with chilling murderous intent. Her hidden strength had been completely forced out by this snake man, so he must die today. Boom! Suddenly, on the ground, numerous twigs broke through the sand and shot up like they were growing from beneath the earth. In an instant, the area around Wang Teng was completely sealed off. All eyes were drawn to this situation, and everyone closely monitored what was happening. The members of the Swift Wing team could not help but feel nervous. Jiang Yu's sudden outburst gave them a glimmer of hope. If Jiang Yu could defeat the enigmatic and formidable Snake Man, their current impasse might be broken, and they might even have a chance to escape. But if Jiang Yu were to lose, they would be in an even worse situation as they had lost another Heaven Stage martial warrior. It could be said that Jiang Yu was now their only hope. In an instant, countless twigs arrived near Wang Ting, converging into a massive sphere that enveloped both Wang Ting and the enormous physique of his metal armor flaming scorpion. Boom! Countless twigs tightened inwards, releasing a terrifying force as if they were trying to crush everything inside into oblivion. Jiang Yu's eyes flickered with joy as if she could already see Wang Teng's impending demise. The martial warriors from the Swift Wing team were elated too. Even Tang Cheng, the divine spirit master who had always been composed, had a slight glint in his eyes and a subtle change in his expression. Kang Yu's expression grew more solemn as she closely watched the spherical mass formed by the plant matter. The sphere wasn't just an ordinary physical attack. What was more terrifying was the power of domain contained within it. Everyone present could feel an extremely powerful domain power emanating from the round ball. Jiang Yu had thoroughly compressed her domain power within the sphere. Judging from the fluctuations, it was at least a 6th-rank domain. Chapter 1944 Ruthless. One after another. 2. The power of an attack compressed in such a manner was absolutely terrifying. What was even more astonishing was that this domain was different from the water element domain she had used earlier. It was a completely different type of domain. Jiang Yu astonishingly wielded 2 incredibly powerful domains. From this perspective, her strength was no less than the silver-horned man from earlier. However, the silver-horned man grasped the power of origin, making him a formidable opponent. At this moment, Jiang Yu only had one advantage. She was betting that Wang Ting had already expended too much of his strength in his previous battle against the silver-horned man. She was taking a gamble. She bet that Wang Ting would not be able to unleash the same level of power that had defeated the silver-horned man. After all, he was only a Cosmos Stage martial warrior, and Jiang Yu did not believe that a Cosmos Stage martial warrior could compete in a battle of endurance with a Heaven Stage martial warrior. But before she could revel in her anticipation, Jiang Yu's expression changed dramatically. Her eyes filled with disbelief. Boom! A thunderous, earth-shaking explosion suddenly erupted. In the massive spherical mass ahead, dazzling streaks of green light burst forth, as if a green sun had been trapped within and was now finally about to explode. As the green light radiated out, clumps of green flames also burst forth from the cracks in the spherical mass, violently igniting on the surface of the branches. Plant-based organisms were highly flammable, and when they encountered celestial flames, they turned into fuel, impossible to control. Jiang Yu's expression changed rapidly as she attempted to control her power of domain to extinguish the green flames. But it seemed to be in vain. Boom! In the next moment, a frightening explosion resounded through the sky, drowning out all other sounds in the vicinity. Startled, everyone turned their gaze toward the source of the noise, their expressions filled with profound shock. A column of green fire abruptly shot up from the spherical mass formed by the plant matter, reaching nearly to the heavens, a truly spectacular sight as if connecting heaven and earth. Simultaneously, an incredibly scorching heat swept out, distorting the surrounding air. Viewed from a distance, it gave rise to a surreal and unreal sensation. The members of the Swift Wing team stared with wide eyes, speechless, as they watched the column of green fire, completely at a loss for words. Fart. Jiang Yu's domain shattered, and she abruptly spat out a large mouthful of blood, her complexion rapidly paling. Impossible. A piercing and sharp scream escaped her lips, even more hysterical and incredulous than when her water element domain was broken. However, she wasn't foolish. Faced with this situation, she had no intention of continuing the fight. She quickly retreated. Boom. A figure carrying an endless sea of green blaze surged forward. The flames coalesced into a fist imprint, striking towards Jiang Yu. 5-element fist. Fire fist imprint. Jiang Yu's pupils constricted. She gritted her teeth and activated all the forces in her body. They congregated into multiple blue palm prints and shot out. Confronted with the scorching and relentless flames, her wood element attacks were completely ineffective. Only water element attacks had any hope of resisting. However, she was now exceedingly weakened, and even her water element palm imprints were not a match for the fiery assault. Furthermore, her combat techniques were only at the heaven stage, a substantial gap compared to Wang Ting's 5 elements fist. Boom. In an instant, several palm imprints shattered, collapsing into numerous blue specks of light that dissipated into the air. Meanwhile, Wang Ting had simply thrown a punch. The fire fist imprint was like a bulldozer, smashing through the broken water element palm imprints and striking fiercely at Jiang Yu. Bang! Jiang Yu's delicate form was instantly sent flying by the punch, crashing heavily onto the ground. Wang Ting showed no mercy. Ah! A piercing, wailing scream echoed as Jiang Yu's body created a deep crater in the desert when it slammed into the ground. She sprang out violently, disheveled. She looked at Wang Ting with eyes that resembled the gaze of a vengeful spirit. "Why are you shouting? You sound so horrible." Wang Ting snorted. With a swift movement, he appeared right above Jiang Yu's head and released his fist imprint again. Jiang Yu was completely caught off guard by his ruthless aggression, and before she could react, the green fist imprint descended from above her. The bitterness in her eyes turned into pure terror, but her current state left her incapable of evading such a powerful attack. She could only watch helplessly as the fist imprint bore down on her. Boom! Jiang Yu was once again smashed into the sandy soil, her entire body sprawling unceremoniously in the massive sand pit, struggling to get back on her feet. The members of the Swift Wing team. This snake man was ruthless. Jiang Yu was the only lady on their team. How could the opponent hit her so ruthlessly? Kang Yu, Little Chinga, even Kang Yu and Little Chinga found Wang Ting's actions rather brutal. How could he be so ruthless towards a lady? Despite the woman's previous disdainful remarks towards the two of them, even calling them seductive and cheap, seeing her beaten to such an extent made their mouths twitch involuntarily. They didn't know that Zeli was someone willing to be so ruthless against a woman. As for Little Chinga, she had even more reason to believe that Wang Ting was not her father. This father must be a fake. Inside the sand pit, Jiang Yu struggled to climb to her feet, but she was in intense pain. Her battle armor had already shattered, exposing a lot of exposed flesh. However, her flesh had nothing enticing about it. Under the searing green flames, it had turned black, resembling a charred pork belly. Chapter 1945 Ruthless. One after another. 3. Wang Ting descended from the sky. The lightning slap appeared in his hand. It was enveloped in crackling lightning, and he directed it towards Jiang Yu's forehead. Bang, 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 swoop, boom. A dull thud accompanied by electric crackles reverberated throughout the area. The muscles on the faces of the members of the Swift Wing team twitched uncontrollably. They couldn't bear to look at them anymore. The familiar sensation was growing stronger. They just couldn't make the immediate connection between this snake man and the prodigy from the stellar academies. Swoosh. At this moment, a faint sonic boom was heard. No one noticed the sudden threat, as they were still absorbed in Wang Ting's relentless assault on Jiang Yu. Meanwhile, the divine spirit master Tang Cheng's lips curled into a cold smile. His eyes sparkled with a glaring light. Wang Ting immediately felt a sense of impending danger, his scalp prickling as if something terrifying was attacking from behind. His gaze sharpened, and without hesitation, he activated the space flash. The space in front of him immediately rippled almost simultaneously, A golden light flashed from the spot where he had been standing, piercing through Wang Teng's heart. The icy gleam in Tang Cheng's eyes became obvious, and the curve of his lips became even more pronounced. He had fully revealed his sinister fangs. Elizabeth, who was opposite him, finally noticed something amiss. Her expression changed entirely. "You have a death wish." Elizabeth was furious. She hadn't expected this divine spirit master to launch a sneak attack on her master right under her nose. Her heart was filled with both shock and anger, and her eyes blazed with killing intent. She couldn't help but blame herself for being too careless, allowing such a mistake to occur and putting her master in a dire situation. "Ha ha ha, your master is dead." Tang Cheng couldn't help but laugh triumphantly. From the beginning, he had been looking for an opportunity to strike and eliminate the Snake Man through a sneak attack. The opponent's strength far exceeded their expectations, and he had no choice but to find a breakthrough using such methods. They had already lost two powerful Heaven Stage martial warriors. They weren't the other party's match. Seeing the endless array of the opponent's abilities, he didn't dare to entertain even the slightest glimmer of hope that the opponent would exhaust his force and become powerless to fight. Judging from the opponent's appearance, that was an almost impossible scenario. Fortunately, such an opportunity had finally presented itself. Just as their opponent was savoring the fruits of victory, he seized the chance to unleash his long-concealed killing move. He believed that no matter how powerful the Snake Man was, he would definitely die under his attack. He had used this move many times in the past and had never failed. No matter what, this Snake Man was just a Cosmos Stage martial warrior. He had observed earlier that the opponent's strength was indeed significant, but defeating a Heaven Stage martial warrior was not as effortless as it might have appeared. When he defeated their captain and Jiang Yu, the Snake Man exerted his full power without holding back. His killing technique, when used against Heaven Stage martial warriors who were unprepared, could effortlessly slay them. Thus, this Snake Man had no chance of escaping. "However, you're celebrating too early." At that moment, a mocking voice entered Tang Cheng's ears. Tang Cheng's expression slightly changed as he realized something was amiss. His strike hadn't landed on anything real but had passed through something illusory. The emptiness caused his expression to freeze. A sinister premonition crept into his heart. Elizabeth gazed at him with a trace of scorn. She knew her master's methods too well. Such an attack might work against ordinary warriors, but against her master, it was nothing more than a futile endeavor. As expected, Wang Teng's shape vanished from its original location, and the golden light only pierced through a fleeting afterimage. In the next moment, Wang Teng's figure reappeared 3 meters away, his gaze fixed on Tang Cheng. A cold expression appeared on his face. He originally planned to deal with this divine spirit master last, but since he was seeking death, he would fulfill his wish. When Tang Cheng saw the look in Wang Teng's eyes, his heart sank. He felt as though he were being hunted by a terrifying beast. The two men locked eyes. Wang Teng extended his palm and suddenly made a throat-slashing gesture. Tang Cheng's expression darkened. He was threatened. But he had to admit that the threat from this Snake Man made him feel uneasy. A sense of panic had taken root in his heart. This feeling left him frustrated and ashamed. He was a Heaven Realm Divine Spirit mentor, but he was feeling anxious because of a threatening gesture from the Cosmos Stage Snake Man. This was absurd. Wang Teng approached Jiang Yu step by step. She was not completely unconscious yet, trying to get up, but the intense pain all over her body made her collapse. She saw Wang Teng approaching, his expression devoid of emotion. It sent a chill of fear through her. "Don't kill me," Jiang Yu pleaded, using both her hands to move backward. "Safe journey," Wang Teng stated indifferently. He produced a sword in his palm and made a gentle swipe. Swoosh! A spray of blood blossomed at Jiang Yu's neck. This Heaven Stage genius with 2 talents met her end in an instant. In her eyes, there was profound unwillingness and resentment as she stared fiercely at Wang Teng. Eventually, her gaze dissipated. Chapter 1946 Ruthless. One after another. 4. Tang Cheng gripped his fists tightly. His eyes were bloodshot. This Snake Man did this on purpose. It must be on purpose. The opponent was clearly mocking him. He was using his teammate's life to taunt him. Tang Cheng felt a shiver down his spine, and he couldn't control the cold sweat oozing from his palms. Heaven stage martial warriors rarely experienced such physical reactions as sweating in response to stress, but at this moment, he couldn't help it. Damn it. Right, and the other 3 heaven stage martial warriors saw this scene and their expressions turned even uglier. Elizabeth, you go help them deal with the others, don't spare anyone. Wang Teng spoke, instructing Elizabeth. Yes. Elizabeth gave a sympathetic look to the human in front of her. Once her master set his sights on someone, that person's fate wouldn't be any better than the previous 2. She didn't waste any more time on this person and turned around, flying toward the battle involving Little White. With Elizabeth's involvement, the pig human race martial warrior who was already overwrought by Little White turned paler. He was already having a hard time dealing with one spiritual pet. He cursed it many times in his heart just now. Now, another ultimate stage Imperial level star beast was joining in. They were determined to push him into a desperate situation. He had already contemplated retreat, but his opponent didn't give him a chance to escape. The Swift Wing team, except for Tang Cheng, had only 3 people left. Their formation had no advantage, and they were already in a losing position. The remaining team members had lost their will to fight and were focused solely on escaping the battlefield and leaving this place of despair and impending death. Now, it's time to settle our score properly. Wang Teng's figure floated up and stopped in front of Tang Cheng, saying calmly. Tang Cheng furrowed his brows. He thought that Wang Ting was referring to the sneak attack earlier, so he didn't pay it much attention. His gaze stayed fixed on Wang Ting, and he replied, "Do you think you can kill me? Let me see how strong a Heaven Realm Divine Spirit Master is today." Wang Ting said. He had been curious about the extent of his spiritual power all along. While it was confirmed that his spiritual power had reached the cosmos realm, when he was at the celestial stage, he had accumulated an immense amount of spiritual power. His spiritual power had become many times denser compared to the average person. Among cosmos realm divine spirit masters, he was undoubtedly able to dominate, with no real contenders. Therefore, it was only a heaven realm divine spirit master could be used to gauge his strength in the realm of spiritual power. Arrogant. Tang Cheng snorted and said, "There is an insurmountable gap between divine spirit masters and martial warriors." Boom. With those words, a powerful surge of spiritual power erupted from within him, forming waves that seemed to crash like tides, roaring and surging toward Wang Ting. Wang Ting hovered in place, making no attempt to evade the incoming assault. Tang Cheng's eyes flickered with satisfaction. This snake man was acting overly arrogant, choosing to confront him, a divine spirit master, head-on. He saw a chance in this. However, at this moment, boom! A 9-level pagoda flew out from Wang Ting's body and floated above his head. The pagoda appeared to be only palm-sized at first, but it instantly expanded countless times, transforming into a massive structure that floated above Wang Teng's head. Boom! The pagoda radiated a dazzling golden light, dazzlingly bright, and an overwhelmingly majestic spiritual power surged from it. Tang Cheng's expression changed suddenly, and he widened his eyes in disbelief. Boom! The 2 invisible spiritual powers collided in the void, erupting with a terrifying explosion. Spiritual energy rippled through the space, forming waves that expanded in all directions. Chapter 1947 Phoenix Golden Feather Blade 1. In the sky. The invisible clash of spiritual power surged forth, and even the onlookers felt the intense waves it generated. The shockwaves produced by the collision of these 2 spiritual forces continued to ripple through the surrounding space. The space couldn't withstand the pressure and finally cracked. Boom! Finally, at the epicenter of their spiritual power clash, it seemed that the spiritual forces had reached a certain limit. With a deafening roar, they erupted into an explosion. 2 figures were sent hurtling through the air, propelled by the impact of their spiritual power confrontation, traveling several thousand meters before they could manage to halt their momentum. Tang Cheng stared at Wang Teng grimly. A look of disbelief still lingered in his eyes as they remained firmly fixed on the golden 9-level pagoda floating above Wang Teng's head. A thought flashed through his mind. Buddha's Sutra. He squeezed the words out of his mouth in disbelief. As a divine spirit master, he was familiar with the renowned Buddha's Sutra. The mystique of the Buddha's Sutra lies in its origin and cultivation techniques, and its reputation is quite remarkable. Especially among divine spirit masters, it held an even more exalted status that was hard to imagine. Many divine spirit masters were aware of the existence of the Buddha's Sutra, and even self-proclaimed talents who considered themselves powerful were eager to try and practice it. Everyone knew how powerful the Buddha's Sutra was. It was said that by cultivating it, one could refine their spiritual power to an extraordinary level. Furthermore, it offers immense potential. The only problem was that the Buddha's Sutra was a little mysterious. Ordinary people cannot easily find this extraordinary scripture. But, at this moment, the legendary Nine Treasures Pagoda appeared right in front of Tang Cheng. He suppressed the tempest of emotions inside and observed carefully. Finally, he confirmed that the appearance of this golden pagoda matched the legendary description precisely. How could he not be astounded? It was even more astonishing than discovering that Wang Ting was a divine spirit master. Who was this snake man? This snake man wasn't just a formidable martial warrior but also a divine spirit master who had practiced the legendary Buddha's Sutra. All of this had shrouded him in a layer of profound mystery, making it difficult for anyone to see the complete picture. Behind this shroud of uncertainty, what kind of being was he? At this moment, Tang Cheng's mind was filled with countless questions, and his expression was one of incredulity. The members of the Swift Wing team in the distance were equally astounded. This snake man was also a divine spirit master. Frightening. This was horrifying. How many more hidden abilities did this snake man have? They felt a sense of despair. They were already at a disadvantage, so when they saw Wang Ting releasing such powerful spiritual power, they felt even more hopeless. Kang Yu and Little Chinga swapped glances with each other, growing more suspicious by the moment. How could Zeli possess such powerful spiritual power? While rare, the Snake Hurry did have divine spirit masters, so they knew about them. Hence, they were well conscious of what being a divine spirit master entailed. Each divine spirit master was exceptionally strong, and if a divine spirit master appeared among the snake men, they would receive special training and a high position. However, Zeli had never displayed this talent. It was almost inconceivable. How could someone who has lived among them for so many years hide so deeply? Wang Ting stood in the air with the Nine Treasures Pagoda floating above his head. He looked at Tang Cheng with a serious expression. He looked at Tang Cheng in the distance, his expression growing slightly serious. Heaven Realm Divine Spirit Masters were indeed incredibly powerful. If he hadn't directly utilized the Nine Treasures Pagoda earlier, he probably wouldn't have been able to easily withstand the spiritual pressure from Tang Cheng. The Nine Treasures Pagoda had condensed his spiritual power to an extreme level, and combined with Wang Ting's already robust spiritual power, it barely allowed him to withstand the spiritual pressure of a Heaven Realm Divine Spirit Master. What Buddha's Sutra? Why don't I know what you're saying? Wang Ting looked at the other party and asked curiously. Actually, to be honest, I cultivate the Pagoda Demon Suppression Scripture. Tang Cheng was evidently stupefied. To hell with the Pagoda Demon Suppression skill. Did he think he was blind? How could he not know what the Nine Treasures Pagoda formed from the Buddha's Sutra looked like? Wait, could it be that this snake man didn't know about the Buddha's Sutra and mistook it for some kind of Pagoda Demon Suppression skill? In an instant, Tang Cheng's mind raced with assumptions, and a trace of disdain curled his lips. As expected of a native. They didn't even know what the Buddha's Sutra was. He had a treasure but he didn't know it. What a joke. Suddenly, a sharp glint flashed past his eyes. The other party didn't know what Buddha's Sutra was. Did that mean that he didn't know how substantial this scripture was? If that were the case, Tang Cheng saw an opportunity to manipulate the situation and make the Buddha's Sutra his own. Greed flickered in Tang Cheng's eyes. His covetousness overshadowed even the life-threatening situation he was in. At a subconscious level, he might believed that he was still more substantial than this snake man divine spirit master and he wouldn't lose. In the next moment, the fire of determination blazed in Tang Cheng's eyes, and his spiritual power began to permeate the surrounding sky. Swoosh. Simultaneously, a subtle sonic boom resonated in the void. Wang Teng's gaze sharpened, and he swiftly evaded. Chapter 1948 Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. 2. A golden ray of light pierced through the space where he was originally standing. It was the same one that had previously ambushed him. Wang Ting immediately activated his real eye to identify the source of the golden light. He finally saw its true form. This was a weapon resembling the feathers of a bird. The weapon was entirely golden, with a sharp-pointed head and surrounded by bird-like barbs. This spiritual kinesis weapon was quite special. Before he could think further, the golden ray of light made a sharp turn in mid-air and swiftly followed Wang Teng, closing in at lightning speed. Wang Teng's eyes flickered, and with a wave of his hand, spiritual power surged forth, emitting a series of icy flashes. Clang! 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 In a few crisp sounds, Wang Teng's flying daggers were directly severed by the golden ray of light, which left him quite surprised. While his flying daggers were not particularly special spiritual weapons, their quality reached the heaven level. Yet, they were destroyed so easily. This was beyond his expectations. Spiritual weapons were generally quite rare, especially those that weren't mass-produced. Otherwise, Lan wouldn't have gone to great lengths to employ him, a Grandmaster blacksmith, to forge the Thousand Armaments vessel. The Thousand Armaments vessel was a powerful heaven-level spiritual weapon. Conventional and mass-produced heaven-level spiritual weapons wouldn't possess the same level of power as the Thousand Armaments vessel. What is that weapon? Wang Teng was astounded. Suddenly, he remembered that the golden crescent blade was destroyed by a golden light. Could this be the same item? An ordinary spiritual weapon can't stand against my Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. Tang Cheng, seeing Wang Teng's astonishment, gloated. Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. Wang Teng's eyes lit up. He muttered to himself, so this weapon is called the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. Quite an imposing name, I must say. Swoosh. The sound of breaking air echoed again. Guided by Tang Cheng, the golden light shot towards Wang Teng's vital points with a cunning angle. As a Heaven Realm Divine Spirit Master, he had impeccable control over spiritual weapons. Wang Teng squinted when he saw the power of the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. He didn't dare to confront it head-on and immediately activated his light bolt skill. His body transformed into a white light as he evaded the golden light's pursuit. However, under Tang Cheng's control, even though Wang Ting used light bolt to move at a tremendous speed, the golden light closely followed him, not giving up. This won't work. Wang Teng's expression became more serious. He hadn't expected that his opponent possessed such a powerful weapon, and it put him in a difficult situation. But he wasn't one to passively accept his fate. His eyes gleamed with determination as he considered a counter-strategy. Oh right, void mayflies. He couldn't get close to the other party, so he could only use his void mayflies. In an instant, numerous dots of light floated out from his forehead, accompanied by his spiritual power. Amid Tang Cheng's golden spiritual energy, they remained incredibly concealed. These dots of light silently dispersed into the sky. They appeared briefly and then vanished. Wang Ting had imbued them with space force, and they instantly disappeared into the spaces between dimensions, stealthily moving closer to Tang Cheng. Tang Cheng's spiritual power was spread all around, forming something akin to absolute perception in the space surrounding him. However, Wang Teng's void had completely slipped into the crevices of space, so they were beyond his detection. That was why the other party didn't notice anything amiss. At this moment, Tang Cheng seemed to be growing impatient. Wang Ting's speed had taken him by surprise. His Phoenix Golden Feather Blade was extremely fast. The average warrior wouldn't be able to keep up with its speed. However, Wang Ting's speed was so fast that even the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. This was unbelievable. A snort came out of his mouth. Suddenly, two more streaks of golden light shot out from the right and left of Wang Teng, aiming for his head and heart. The three golden streaks formed a triangular pattern, blocking the three most critical points on Wang Teng's body. Getting hit by these golden streaks would, at the very least, result in severe injury if not death. Wang Teng was shocked. He didn't think that there would be more than one phoenix golden feather blade. However, he reacted quickly and released his spiritual power, forming 2 spiritual shields in front of him. Spiritual shield. He had already become highly proficient in this skill and was capable of invoking it instantly. In the next moment, those 2 streaks of golden light fiercely struck the spiritual shields, causing them to ripple and crack. The phoenix golden feather blade was so sharp that even the shield formed from supernatural power couldn't block it. Wang Teng, however, remained unfazed and simply passed through the gap between the 2 shields. Bang! Bang! The 2 shields behind him shattered instantly. As it turned out, Wang Ting had not used too much spiritual power to condense the 2 shields. He only needed to block the 2 golden lights for a moment. This way, he could conserve his supernatural power to the maximum extent. Tang Cheng's expression changed. He didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to kill the snake man even after using 3 of his phoenix golden feather blades. Moreover, 2 of his attacks were blocked. The opponent's tenacity far exceeded his imagination. At this moment, the 3rd streak of golden glow was still closely following behind. Wang Ting's eyes flashed, and a purple light flew from his hand to intercept the 3rd streak of gilded light. Clang! A metallic vibration resounded. The streak of gilded glow solidly landed on the purple light and surprisingly did not slash through it but was intercepted and stopped. Chapter 1949 Phoenix Golden Feather Blade 3. Oh my God! Tang Cheng's eyes filled with an incredulous look as if he had realized something extraordinary. The familiar feeling of that purple light finally clicked. Suddenly, a thought flashed in his mind. Tang Cheng finally remembered where this sense of familiarity came from. He recalled when they had just arrived on this planet and encountered a terrifying atmospheric disturbance. Back then, he was forced to drag someone down with him into the predicament. At that time, the other party used a purple light to block his phoenix golden feather blade. During that peculiar situation, he didn't have the luxury to think much, but afterward, he still found it incredibly puzzling. The fact that the purple light could block his phoenix golden feather blade meant it was definitely no ordinary weapon. He even secretly investigated the surroundings later but didn't find any matching purple light. Eventually, he gave up. Now, in this very place, he saw a highly similar streak of purple light. At this moment, Tang Cheng couldn't help but widen his eyes as he gazed at the snake man in front of him. What was going on? Could it be that this person is the unfortunate individual they had pulled into that predicament? But wait, he was a native snake man. How could he be the same person? Countless questions swirled in his mind, making him utterly perplexed. Just then, Wang Ting turned his gaze toward Tang Cheng, his eyes icy and a golden gleam flashing in his eyes. Experience the anger of the void mayflies. Tang Cheng's expression changed slightly as he felt the looming crisis. He didn't know what the anger of the void mayflies was, but he knew that it wasn't a good thing. In a hurry, he attempted to retreat. But it was already too late. Countless tiny dots of light suddenly appeared all around him, then exploded with a deafening roar. Boom! 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 An intense spiritual power surged forth. The spiritual attacks hidden in the void mayflies exploded. They included spiritual spikes, the spiritual illusion skill, and the spiritual missile skill. All of them swept towards Tang Cheng. This complex and numerous array of attack methods left Tang Cheng in a state of panic. He had to continuously mobilize his spiritual power to create protective barriers around him to defend against the countless spiritual assaults. However, ordinary spiritual defenses could block spiritual spikes and spiritual missiles but were ineffective against spiritual illusion. Spiritual illusion directly affected his mind, creating illusions that were indistinguishable from reality. What's more, this illusion was too interesting. Numerous naked beauties appeared in front of him, enticing and beguiling. However, every one of them had their backs turned to him. They were covered in semi-transparent garments that added an aura of mystery, making them utterly irresistible. It was a well-known fact that the more elusive something appeared, the more difficult it was to resist. This scene was enough to make even someone as strong-willed as Tang Cheng's blood boil. It wasn't a matter of his willpower. His body reacted naturally. However, In the next moment, all those alluring women turned around, revealing unattractive and muscular men with distinct male features. The contrast between the front and back was stark. In reality, this might be impossible, but within the illusion, everything was possible. So what if it was beautiful women from behind and burly men in the front? Even if they are monsters in the front, it shouldn't be an issue. Anything could happen. Tang Cheng, upon seeing this, widened his eyes and almost spewed out a mouthful of blood. He was left utterly flabbergasted. Oh no! Finally, he realized that he was in an illusion. With a sense of urgency, he immediately activated his spiritual power, forcefully breaking through the illusion. But when he regained his senses, Wang Teng's attack was already upon him. Tang Cheng gazed up, and his pupils constricted intensely. He saw the 9-level pagoda pressing down from above his head, and his expression turned extremely horrified. At this moment, he had no time to evade and could only watch as the 9-story pagoda came crashing down. Overwhelmed with shock, Tang Cheng unleashed his spiritual power with all his might, surging toward the sky. Boom! The spiritual power turned into a beam of golden light and fired towards the pagoda. The two of them collided violently in mid-air. The golden pillar of light trembled continuously as if it couldn't withstand the impact of the 9 treasures pagoda. Wang Teng's 9 treasures pagoda was forged with 2 divine hammers and refined hundreds of times, and it contained spiritual power far beyond what an ordinary cosmos-real divine spirit master could wield. Thus, even if he was facing a heaven realm divine spirit master, he still had the ability to fight with him. However, under Tang Cheng's intense control, his spiritual power surged continuously from within, merging into the golden pillar, supporting it in its battle against the 9 treasures pagoda. The strength of heaven realm spiritual power became evident in its exceptional endurance. The two of them found themselves at a standstill. One continued to control the descending pagoda, while the other guided the golden pillar of spiritual power, forcefully pushing it into the sky. Wang Ting had anticipated this situation, and his body had already vanished into the void. He used his skill ability. Space ripples spread, and he reappeared instantly behind Tang Cheng, letting out a furious roar. Divine Sonic Wave. Soundwave Spirit Battle Technique. The spiritual power shockwaves entered Tang Cheng's ears, inducing his expression to change drastically. Under the influence of the divine sonic wave, his consciousness instantly entered a slow state, and the spiritual power he had been gathering into a pillar became instantly unstable. Chapter 1950 Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. 4. Boom! The next moment, the golden light pillar collapsed and shattered into countless golden specks. The 9 treasures pagoda descended without giving the other party a chance to react. Boom! The massive pagoda pressed down fiercely on top of Tang Cheng's head, resulting in a resounding crash. In the presence of the enormous 9 treasures pagoda, Tang Cheng's body appeared exceedingly feeble and crashed into the sandy ground below. The sand around them soared into the sky, obscuring everything at the center. Only the colossal golden pagoda remained standing within, with its top still visible. Far away, the remaining 3 members of the Swift Wing team gazed in shock at the scene. This snake man possessed such powerful divine spirit master skills. Even Tang Cheng was suppressed. In 3 different battles, this snake man displayed various incredible abilities, eliminating one powerful member of their team after another. He seemed like an endless well of power, constantly surprising and surpassing their expectations. Kang Yu and Little Chinga had incredibly complex expressions on their faces, unsure of how to describe their emotions. They couldn't be certain if the person before them was truly Zeli. There were too many mysteries surrounding this individual. Wang Ting descended from the sky. The metal armor flaming scorpion flew over, allowing Wang Ting to land on it. It smiled and flattered him. "Master, you're so impressive. This Heaven Realm Divine Spirit Master is no match for you. You're amazing." Wang Ting paid no heed to this flattery and instead looked at the suppressed Tang Cheng in front of him, his brows furrowing deeply. Boom! A deafening explosion resounded. All the dust in the surroundings was forcefully pushed aside, and from the center of it all, a golden sphere burst out from beneath the tower. The 9 treasures pagoda was pushed up continuously. The golden sphere grew larger and gradually transformed into a massive sphere, completely lifting the 9 treasures pagoda. In fact, the size of this golden sphere surpassed that of the 9 treasures pagoda, covering an area of tens of thousands of meters. Oh no! The metal armor flaming scorpion cried out. Wang Teng's expression also changed slightly, and without much thought, he immediately retracted the 9 treasures pagoda. With a flash of golden light, the 9 treasures pagoda shrank to a much smaller size and penetrated his forehead. Boom! Meanwhile, an explosion occurred as a terrifying energy exploded out from the golden sphere, radiating in all directions. Within that energy, there was a formidable domain power spreading. This golden sphere was the domain created by Tang Cheng, and it was a spiritual domain. Wang Teng's expression became grave. He hadn't anticipated that Tang Cheng would be this formidable and tricky to deal with. Even his 9 treasures pagoda couldn't completely suppress him. The power of the 9 treasures pagoda shouldn't be underestimated, but the vast difference in their strengths might be the reason he couldn't fully suppress Tang Cheng. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the golden domain expanded rapidly, pulling Wang Ting and the metal armor flaming scorpion inside. Wang Teng didn't resist. He wanted to see what Tang Cheng's spiritual domain looked like. If he could gain something from it, that would be the best outcome. It had been a while since Wang Ting had improved his spiritual domain. His black metal domain was only at the 4th rank. If he didn't raise it, it wouldn't be able to catch up with the other domains. He was not concerned about his safety. No matter how strong Tang Cheng's domain was, he could easily break through it using his most powerful techniques to ensure his safety. As they penetrated the golden domain, the environment changed dramatically. Inside the sphere, golden light filled the area, and golden mist wafted about, creating a peculiar and mystical atmosphere. "You're very confident. You penetrated my domain voluntarily." A cold voice came from within the mist. Wang Ting turned toward the source of the voice and saw Tang Cheng slowly materializing before him, gazing down at him from a higher vantage point. "It's just a domain. Why won't I dare to enter?" Wang Teng replied calmly. "Arrogant." Tang Cheng snorted. "Whether it's arrogance or not, you'll find out soon enough," Wang Teng said calmly. Tang Cheng was confused. He stared at Wang Ting intently and asked the biggest question in his heart. "Tell me, who are you? Why don't you take a guess?" Wang Ting suddenly wore a somewhat mischievous smile and chuckled at his opponent. "Tang Cheng, guess your head." He never expected that in such a tense and serious situation, his opponent would still have the spirit to joke around. However, his expression seemed a little out of place when compared to his snake man appearance. This snake man wasn't who he seemed to be. It was as though there was another person hidden beneath that exterior. Tang Cheng coldly stared at Wang Ting and finally voiced his speculation. "You're the unlucky guy we dragged into this mess." "Unlucky guy?" Wang Ting couldn't help but exploded into hearty laughter, but as he laughed, his expression turned cold. "You guys are quite audacious, but soon enough, it'll make you realize who the real unlucky one is. It's really you." Tang Cheng, upon hearing Wang Ting's words, was now certain of his suspicion and exclaimed in astonishment. "Whether it's me or not, what does it matter? In the end, all of you will die," Wang Teng replied with his usual calm demeanor. Chapter 1951 Phoenix Golden Feather Blade 5. Tang Cheng's inner turmoil continued. Now he finally understood why this snake man wanted them to die. He realized that their leader must have known this astonishing information, which was why he had shown that peculiar look in the end as if he had something to say but couldn't. Gasp! As these memories rushed through his mind, Tang Cheng's scalp went numb, and he couldn't help but draw in a cold breath. Everything suddenly made sense. He didn't know what kind of person they provoked. The snake man in front of him was utterly terrifying. He had gradually driven his team to this point, and now, their entire swift-wing team was on the verge of destruction. The 3 martial warriors outside couldn't possibly stand against this snake man. If anyone had a chance, it was likely only himself. If he could capture the snake man, perhaps they might have a slim chance of escape. However, he had his doubts. His earlier speculations had poured cold water on his desires. He didn't have the time to think about the Buddha's sutra anymore. At this moment, his sole focus was on escaping the clutches of this snake man. Knowing that he had concealed his identity and pushed him into this dire situation, he had no doubt this snake man wouldn't let him escape easily. Therefore, he needed to prepare for the worst. Tang Cheng took a deep breath and made a concerted effort to calm himself. He looked intently at Wang Teng. "Oh, it seems you've already accepted reality," Wang Ting uttered in surprise. Just a moment ago, this guy had seemed overwhelmed by the Buddha's sutra, but now he appeared to be back to his senses. It was quite interesting. It appeared that underestimating any genius martial warrior from the stellar academies was a mistake. They might be arrogant and even blinded by their self-interest, but they weren't foolish. Tang Cheng didn't say anything else. His expression was extremely grave. His spiritual power surged furiously as he activated his domain power to its maximum. He would no longer underestimate the snake man in front of him. There was only one thought in his mind. Kill this guy at all costs. Boom. The golden mist around them churned vigorously, and streaks of golden lights darted rapidly within the mist. Only their after images were visible. However, when Wang Teng activated his real I Am, he discovered that those golden streaks were actually the Phoenix golden feather blade. He couldn't help but be amazed. At one glance, he saw a few hundred Phoenix golden feather blades. Before activating his domain, Wang Teng found it challenging to deal with 3 Phoenix golden feather blades. Yet, there were a few hundred of them now. He felt a tingling sensation on his scalp, and his mouth felt slightly dry. Good Lord! There were so many Phoenix golden feather blades. He couldn't help but wonder where Tang Cheng had obtained these powerful treasures. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed his self-confidence. As Tang Cheng activated his domain, he felt the increasing pressure. This domain is at least at the 5th rank. With the Phoenix golden feather blade, its power will be terrifying. Regular 5th rank domains won't be able to match this combination. His thoughts raced, and he finally settled on his flaming magnetic meteor domain. Only this domain might be capable of contending with Tang Cheng's power. He had already utilized his frost domain, and the consumption was significant. He couldn't execute it again. Therefore, he had no choice but to unleash this immensely powerful mixed domain, as it was his only hope. Wang Ting's gaze sharpened, and without further hesitation, he unleashed the domain energy within him, causing it to spread in all directions. Boom! Strange ripples surged and instantly transformed into a red domain, opposing the golden domain of Tang Cheng. Heh! Tang Cheng squinted. His gaze landed on Wang Ting's domain and he was astounded. Condense. At this moment, a resounding shout came from Wang Ting's mouth. Within the red domain, massive stone spheres congregated towards the center, forming a colossal sphere resembling a small asteroid. Boom! Flames erupted from the sphere and an intense heat spread throughout the domain. Tang Cheng was increasingly horrified. With a determined look, he bit his lip and slammed his palm onto his forehead, releasing the last of his spiritual power. It merged with the golden mist around him. Clang! Suddenly, a clear and resonant chirping sound echoed within the golden mist. The hundreds of Phoenix golden feather blade had merged into a magnificent and mystical golden phoenix, soaring high within the golden mist. As the divine golden phoenix appeared, blood commenced to flow from Tang Cheng's 7 orifices on his face. His face contorted with anger as he locked his gaze on Wang Teng. Wang Teng was flabbergasted. He immediately pointed a finger toward the massive sphere above him, infusing it with a thread of energy of laws of origin. Die! Tang Cheng no longer hesitated and shouted madly. Clang! The divine golden phoenix behind Tang Cheng let out a resounding cry and flapped its enormous wings, charging straight toward Wang Teng. Go! Wang Teng shouted and extended his hand, pointing downwards. Boom! The massive sphere, like a shooting star with a long trail of flames, plummeted down. Chapter 1952 Complete Victory. Gains. 1. In the domain. A spectacular scene unfolded. On one side, a massive fireball resembling an asteroid descended from the heavens with a terrifying momentum. On the other side, a gigantic divine golden phoenix, surrounded by an endless shower of golden mist, created long, feathery tails behind it. Clang! Amidst a clear and melodious chirping, the two finally collided in mid-air. Boom! The divine golden phoenix seemed to transform into a golden arrow, colliding with the massive fireball. Golden light continuously radiated from it, attempting to disintegrate the enormous fireball bit by bit. However, the flames on the stone sphere were no ordinary flames. They were the condensation of Wang Ting's unique divine flames. Suddenly, they transformed into an endless sea of fire, almost filling the entire sky of the domain. Due to the flames, the golden mist couldn't harm the core of the stone sphere at all. At the same time, the power of magnetic force erupted, causing the massive fireball to carry an unparalleled force of descent, relentlessly pressing down on the divine golden phoenix. Clang! The giant divine golden phoenix emitted a mournful cry from its mouth, flapping its wings continuously, trying to halt its downward momentum. Batches of golden light scattered down as if it was struggling in its dying moment. Tang Cheng bellowed, and from his 7 orifices, more and more blood flowed, making him appear extremely fierce and terrifying. The divine golden phoenix soared into the sky, but its efforts were in vain. Boom! 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 The asteroid-like fireball continued to press down, meter by meter, slowly descending. If it weren't within the domain, the space would likely have been crushed by this terrifying force. Such a terrifying attack, if directed at a true celestial body in space, would be enough to destroy it outright. Even a supergiant star would be unable to withstand such an assault. Fortunately, the Scorpion King star was created by a powerful being, so it was sturdy and extraordinary. The inner structure of the planet was even engraved with the patterns of heaven and earth, making it resilient and resistant to collapse. Of course, this was not information accessible to outsiders. Most martial artists only knew that this planet could withstand attacks from Heaven Stage and even Universe Stage martial warriors, but the specific details remained unknown. At this moment, the divine golden phoenix could no longer hold on, emitting a series of mournful cries from its mouth as its body began to disintegrate. Streaks of golden light burst from the divine golden phoenix, transforming into the true form of the phoenix golden feather blade. Fart! Tang Cheng spewed a mouthful of blood, his eyes widening with an expression of unwillingness. He was unwilling to accept this reality, and his eyes brimmed with determination. With a furious roar, he shouted, "Phoenix golden feather blade!" As his roar echoed, the massive divine golden phoenix instantly exploded into countless golden lights. These lights interwove in mid-air, forming what seemed like a golden web that enveloped the enormous fireball. Boom! 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 A deafening roar filled the air, and this time, it was the massive fireball that couldn't hold on any longer. Under the relentless assault of the golden web, explosions erupted around the fireball, and its enormous core began to disintegrate. Large chunks of rock with flames fell from the sky. Wang Ting's expression couldn't help but tighten. He hadn't expected that this person's final outburst would have such terrifying power. Without further hesitation, he directly triggered the power of origin within the enormous fireball. Boom! In the next moment, a terrifying force of the law erupted from inside the fireball, creating an unimaginable impact. Boom! 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 The golden web instantly shattered, and streaks of golden light shot out, landing on the sandy ground below. Splat! Tang Cheng ejected out a mouthful of blood once again, his face turning ashen. His spirit had completely withered, and a hint of despair appeared in his eyes. He could only watch in horror as the massive fireball thundered toward him, his entire face shrouded in fear. Boom! The fireball finally smashed into his body, exploding with a deafening roar. No! A piercing scream erupted from the center of the explosion, but it was quickly drowned out by the thunderous noise and ceased to exist. Sigh. Wang Teng, watching this scene, finally let out a long sigh. The metal armor flaming scorpion was floating below him, acting as a bystander the entire time. Its eyes filled with astonishment. Was this the true force of its master? Scary. This was too scary. It couldn't help but gulp, its heart overwhelmed with shock. It was unable to utter a word and could only stare blankly at everything. People outside the domain couldn't see what was happening inside, but they quickly realized that the golden domain was crumbling inch by inch, eventually disintegrating into numerous golden particles that scattered into the air. On the contrary, the crimson domain still stood high above the desert, radiating scorching heat. The domain floated in the sky and, from a distance, resembled a small sun. The result was obvious. As the crimson domain dissipated on its own, an enormous figure emerged, and it was none other than the metal armor flaming scorpion. A figure stood on the back of the metal armor flaming scorpion. It was Wang Ting. He was holding someone in his hand. That individual hung lifelessly, with his head drooping and his body devoid of vitality, as if he had lost all life. Kang Yu and little Chinga were astounded. He won. He really won. One individual single-handedly defeated 3 Heaven Stage martial warriors. It was unbelievable. In their eyes, each of those 3 extraterrestrial humans was extremely formidable, but not one of them could lose Zeli. In the beginning, they had feared the worst. Kang Yu was even prepared to sacrifice herself to hold back the 6 Heaven Stage martial warriors so that little Chinga and Zeli could leave first. Chapter 1953 Complete Victory. Gains. 2. While she claimed she could eventually break free from the 6 extraterrestrial humans, she had her doubts. The strength of the extraterrestrial Heaven Stage humans was simply overwhelming. Even she would find it extremely difficult to come out unscathed when facing 6 of them simultaneously. With the slightest misstep, she might fall here. But then, unexpectedly, Zeli unleashed a burst of power and single-handedly dealt with 3 of them. The situation was suddenly reversed. They, who were supposed to be in a disadvantaged position, had become the ultimate winners. Little Chinga was even more stunned than Kang Yu. Although her awakening had endowed her with unparalleled talent, surpassing most individuals even within the 7 stellar academies. But, her power was still at the planetary stage, and she had only recently reached that level. Her horizons had yet to expand fully. Heaven Stage martial warriors were still beyond her reach. So, in her eyes, those 6 extraterrestrial Heaven Stage humans were truly terrifying, akin to gods. That's right, gods. In the eyes of many native martial warriors, Heaven Stage martial warriors were considered godlike beings of a planet. Yet, her daddy had the power to defeat the gods. This was something she found hard to accept. No matter whether she doubted Wang Ting's true identity, at this moment, he was fighting in the guise of Zeli, and this was the reason for her profound shock. The remaining 3 Heaven Stage martial warriors from the Swift Wing team had fallen silent. They were filled with despair. They were in dire straits by now and had taken quite a beating even under the combined assault of Elizabeth, Kang Yu, and the others. If not for the last glimmer of hope in their hearts, they would have given up long ago. But now, even that last glimmer of hope had been completely extinguished. Run! We must escape! The 3 of them exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with determination as if they had made a very difficult decision. They had already attempted to escape multiple times, but under the siege of Elizabeth, Kang Yu, and the others, they couldn't break free. With the last glimmer of hope in mind, they had decided to continue fighting. However, at this moment, they had lost all wish to fight. The snake man holding Tang Cheng was looking at them serenely from afar. They couldn't help but feel a chill, wanting nothing more than to leave this place. At any cost. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the 3 of them exploded simultaneously. They were making a final, desperate effort, willing to deplete their origin of life if necessary. Otherwise, they were doomed to die today. They unleashed their respective domains at the cost of their origin of life, forcibly increasing their power. They aimed to break through the siege of Elizabeth and Kang Yu using this last-ditch effort. Trying to escape, Elizabeth's lips curled into a faint smile. Seeing that Wang Ting had decisively emerged victorious, she no longer needed to hold back. She could finally act without restraint. A brilliant yellow light converged on her body, forming layers of yellow dragon scale-like armor that covered her form, creating a frightening defense. Simultaneously, an even more formidable yellow light pillar coalesced atop her 2 massive dragon horns, gathering the power of the origin and then fiercely struck forward. Boom! The yellow light pillar swept through, exploding upon the domains of the 3 men. Intense reverberations echoed all around, and their domains were instantly shattered, with the yellow light pillar ruthlessly striking their bodies. Screams of torment filled the air, and the three men widened their eyes in disbelief, instantly engulfed by the yellow light pillar. Oh Kang Yu, who was standing nearby, also widened her eyes, her face filled with confusion. After fighting for a long time, she thought that this ultimate stage Imperial-level spiritual pet only had this little ability and couldn't deal with the 3 heaven-stage martial warriors. However, she had underestimated it. This ultimate stage Imperial-level star beast hadn't even used its full strength. It was merely restraining the 3 of them and had no intention of defeating them. Even his spiritual pets are so powerful. Kang Yu looked at Zeli in the distance and sighed. As a peak heaven stage martial warrior, she felt that she was too weak. At this moment, Wang Ting flew over from a distance and, upon seeing this scene, couldn't help but complain. Elizabeth, I haven't had enough fun yet, and you've resolved them all in one swoop. Master, I thought you didn't want to play anymore. Elizabeth hesitated for a moment and said sheepishly, they have a breath left. Would you like to continue? Wang Ting, Kang Yu, little Chinga, what kind of words was this? Continuing when they have only a breath left? This spiritual pet was a devil. Kang Yu and little Chinga looked at it strangely. They felt that if the heart of this spiritual pet with a young lady's face was cut open, it would probably be black. Elizabeth, you seem to have turned evil. Wang Ting was speechless too. Cough, Master, you're complimenting me. I learned it all from you, Elizabeth coughed and said. Wang Ting gave her an exasperated look, indicating that he wouldn't take the blame for this. Who praised you anyway? You're accusing me without reason. Kang Yu and little Chinga's expressions turned strange. There was something off about this master and servant. While they were speaking, the yellow light pillar slowly dissipated, and the 3 heaven stage martial warriors reappeared, falling to the ground with their battle armor shattered and drenched in blood. They struggled to stand up, their bodies swaying, almost unable to support themselves. They coughed up blood in large amounts, their eyes filled with fear as they looked at Elizabeth. Chapter 1954 Complete Victory. Gains. 3. The 3 of them didn't expect the ultimate stage Imperial-level spiritual pet to be so terrifying. Wang Ting slowly descended from the sky and then floated over to the 3 of them. Honestly, it was hard to get used to this snake man body in a short time. Fortunately, he could just hover in the air without needing to touch the ground. Kang Yu and the others didn't know what he was planning, so they flew over as well. What do you want? The young man named Wright looked at Wang Ting in fear, wanting to step back but stumbled and fell to the ground. Hey, weren't you just raving about how much you liked the snake women beauties? Why are you acting so weak now? Can't you even stand up? Wang Ting teased, looking at him with a smile. Wright's face turned green, and he wished he could give himself a couple of slaps. B0XO. If he had known from the start that these snake men were so tough, he would never have said those things. It was too late now. Words spoken cannot be taken back. It was clear that this snake man held grudges. He remembered what was said. On the other hand, Kang Yu and little Chinga were surprised. Was he seeking revenge for them? Was this fellow really Zeli? If he was, how could he be so powerful? But if he wasn't, why would he seek revenge for them? At this moment, the 2 women found themselves caught in the whirlpool of doubt. Brother, I actually don't like snake men, do you believe me? I was just making a joke. Wright made a final struggle, speaking somewhat sheepishly. Oh. Wang Ting looked at him with a somewhat amused expression. You don't like such beautiful snake women? Are your eyes blind, or do you think mine are? Right. It seemed like there was no right answer. Saying that he didn't like them wasn't right, but saying that he liked them was wrong too. What should he do? He was filled with bitterness, his gaze trembling, and the muscles on his face involuntarily twitched. Kang Yu and little Chinga looked at each other's expression as if they had eaten a bitter gourd. They were having a hard time controlling the corners of their lips. They wanted to laugh but they didn't dare to. After all, this wasn't a good time to laugh. Can I like them? Wright probed. What? You do have improper intentions after all. Wang Ting's face changed, his gaze becoming extremely dangerous. The lightning slap appeared in his hand. Right. Kang Yu and little Chinga were stunned too. They hadn't fully recovered from Wang Ting's antics. They felt that he was quite shameless. The extraterrestrial human was completely played with by him. However, this shamelessness didn't make them dislike him. Elizabeth and the others were long used to his antics. They knew their master better than anyone else. They were currently floating in the air, watching the spectacle. All that was left was a few plates of fruits and they could enjoy the show. The three massive beasts surrounded the three people, emitting a subtle but potent pressure that was far from ordinary. The other two Heaven Stage martial warriors glanced at the three ferocious beasts above them and swallowed their saliva. But they still tried to maintain composure. They could tell that the Snake Man had no intention of letting them go. He was just toying with them now. If you want to kill or torture us, do as you wish. Don't think you can toy with us, the pig human race martial warriors suddenly snorted. Huh! You're quite tough. Wang Teng looked at the other person in surprise, then suddenly turned and approached him. The lightning slap in his hand was now emitting dazzling lightning. Come on, let me see if your forehead is as tough as your mouth. Cold sweat appeared on the pig human race martial warrior's forehead. The other combat warrior from the Swift Wing team wanted to speak, but seeing this scene, he immediately closed his lips and took a step back. The pig human race martial warriors wanted to say something, but Wang Teng didn't give them any chance. The lightning slap in his hand suddenly struck down. Bang, bang, bang. Swoop. Boom. The pig human race martial warrior was just putting on a strong front. He couldn't resist Wang Ting's attack at all. The force he had just activated was instantly shattered by the lightning slap, which then solidly landed on the warrior's head. The pig human race combat warrior let out a horrifying scream. His pig head expanded at a visible speed, making it impossible to look at. Right and the other combat warrior felt their hair standing. Their hair stood on their ends. When they witnessed this up close, they realized how terrifying and gruesome this method of attack was. Under the thunderous assault, the pig human race martial warrior's body trembled uncontrollably. His gaze rolled back, and his head became charred and swollen. This torture wasn't just physical. It was psychological too. This was inhumane. In no time, the pig human race combat warrior convulsed and dropped to the ground. He had started with a single pig head, but now he had two large ones. Kang Yu and little Chinga couldn't bear to watch. While this method was satisfying, they found it inhumane. It's your turn. Wang Teng turned to the other two and grinned. The two combat warriors shuddered. They took 3 steps back in unplanned unison and shouted, "Don't come over. Don't be nervous. It'll be over in a moment." "Who wants to go first?" Wang Teng asked. Chapter 1955 Complete Victory. Gains. 4. Silence. The two of them turned silent. Then, they pointed at each other. Him. The same tone and words came out of their mouths at the same time. Kang Yu. Little Chinga. Look at what he had done to them. B0XO. Even Elizabeth and the others were speechless. They were turning against each other. Never mind, you two don't need to fight. You'll both get your turn. Wang Ting shook his head with a wry smile and swung the lightning slap at the young man named Wright, who had caught his displeasure. Another piercing scream filled the air. Bang, bang, bang. Swoop. Boom. Soon, Wright collapsed, turning into another pig-headed young man, convulsing all over. The last martial warrior couldn't help but swallow hard, trembling uncontrollably. This person was too scary. He was a devil, right? He must be. Wang Teng didn't show any mercy, striking swiftly with his lightning slap and creating a graceful purple lightning arc that landed on the other man's head. Bang, bang, bang. Swoop. Boom. After a series of brutal beatings, he turned into a pig's head too. Finally, the last warrior fell as well. 3 pig heads lay on the ground, convulsing, moving in unison, as if they had fallen ill. Wang Ting looked at his masterpiece with satisfaction. No, He was looking around at the attribute bubbles and nodded silently. He didn't work so hard for nothing. All these attribute bubbles were his rewards. After collecting the attribute bubbles, Wang Teng lost interest in tormenting them and sent them on their way. A few more attribute bubbles popped up. When you shear a sheep, make sure to shear it clean. Wang Teng silently swept them over with his spiritual power and picked them up. Constellation Force, Earth, *12500 Divine Level Earth Talent *1800 Cosmos Realm Spirit *6400 Universe Realm Enlightenment *5900 Earth Domain *3500 Origin of Life *800 Constellation Force, Metal, *13800 Divine Level Metal Talent *2200 Cosmos Realm Spirit *5200 Universe Realm Enlightenment *5500 Metal Domain *4200 Origin of Life *950 Water Constellation Force *15,000 Divine Level Water Talent *2400 Cosmos Realm Spirit *4500 Universe Realm Enlightenment *4800 Water Domain *4600 Origin of Life *760 A series of attribute bubbles merged into Wang Ting's body and mind, instantly boosting various aspects of his attributes. First, there was the constellation force. 3 constellation forces: Earth, Metal, and Water. These were the attributes of the 3 Heaven Stage martial warriors. Boom! A thunderous sound suddenly emanated from within Wang Teng, indicating that he had broken through in one of these elemental attributes. Metal. Wang Teng felt the surging constellation metal force within him, and a glint of excitement flashed in his eyes. Constellation Metal Force, 10300 Cosmos Stage 5th level. He needed more than 3,000 points of the Constellation Metal Force to break through. Now that he had 13,800 points of the Constellation Metal Force, he was able to reach the 5th level of the Cosmos stage without any obstacles. On the other hand, the Earth and Water elements hadn't reached the requirements for a breakthrough. Constellation Earth Force, 22700 30,000, Cosmos Stage 3rd level. Constellation Water Force, 15300 40,000, Cosmos Stage 4th level. Wang Teng looked at the attributes board and was satisfied. The increase was significant. While there was no immediate breakthrough, these attribute bubbles would prepare him for future advancements. Next were the 3 talent attributes. It was undeniable that the students of the Swift Wing team were every talented individuals. Despite not being the strongest in the Swift Wing team, all 3 of these Heaven Stage martial warriors had reached the divine level for their talents, which was quite surprising. However, Wang Teng's water talent had reached an unprecedented immortal level. This divine level water talent was useless to him. Wang Teng sighed uncontrollably. His progress had been too fast, making these divine level talent attribute bubbles somewhat of a waste. Nonetheless, the other 2 talent attributes hadn't gone to waste. Fortunately, the other 2 talents weren't wasted. Divine Level Metal Talent, 9500 50,000 Divine Level Earth Talent, 10500 50,000 Then, there was the Universe Realm Spirit attribute. He received 16,100 points in total. It was a sizable amount. Wang Teng suddenly felt a sense of clarity in his mind, as his greatly expended spiritual power was now showing signs of recovery. Spirit, 42600200000, Cosmos Realm. In this wave, Wang Teng's spiritual power had surged significantly. It went from more than 20,000 points to more than 40,000 points. He could only blame himself for raising the limit of his spiritual energy so much that he needed 200,000 attribute points to reach the perfected stage. If it was a normal Cosmos Realm Holy Spirit Master, his spiritual energy would have reached the 4th level of the Cosmos Realm. Now, he was only at the 2nd level of the Universe Realm. However, it was important to note that Wang Ting's 2nd level Universe Realm was stronger than an average 2nd level. Besides that, his Universe Realm Enlightenment increased too. There were 16,200 points of it, which was very close to the increase in his spirit attribute values. Of course, the level of his enlightenment was much higher. Wang Ting realized that most of these talented martial warriors had Universe Realm Enlightenment. It was impressive. At the very least, He had yet to encounter a talent from the stellar academies who didn't possess universe realm enlightenment. Enlightenment, 119400300000, universe realm. After the enlightenment attribute, there was the domain attribute. The 3 heaven stage martial warriors had mastered powerful domains, and they had 3 different domains. During the final outburst, a considerable number of attributes were dropped. The domains of these 3 martial warriors had reached the 6th rank. Hence, they were of great help to Wang Ting's enlightenment. Chapter 1956 Complete Victory. Gains. 5. Wang Ting merged the Earth domain into his flaming magnetic meteor domain. His 5th rank domain rose rapidly and reached the 6th rank. It became Wang Ting's first domain to reach the 6th rank. Before this encounter, Wang Ting's domains reached a maximum of the 5th rank. They were at the actualization phase, so they were more powerful than normal 6th rank domains. However, they were still in the 5th rank. They still had some distance to cover in terms of insight compared to the 6th rank. The gradual progression of Wang Ting's domain strength was essential, and it could not be achieved all at once. Flaming magnetic meteor domain, 206,000, 6th rank. The metal domain used to be at the 5th rank, but now, it reached the 6th rank too. B0XO. Com metal domain, 126,000, 6th rank. Actually, Wang Ting's 5-element domains could all be considered to have reached the 5th stage. This was because his 5-element sword domain had already reached the 5th rank, and it contained the insight of the 5th stage for each of the 5 elements. His water domain rose too. It went from the 5th rank to the 6th rank, which was a huge leap. However, the water domain was mainly merged into the netherworld domain, so it was Wang Ting's netherworld domain that rose. Netherworld domain, 356,000, 6th rank. While the domain has been elevated to the 6th rank, the focus has shifted, resulting in a deeper insight into the water domain within the netherworld domain. The insights of other aspects such as the sea gravity domain, water lunar domain, and water cloud domain may be slightly less profound. Of course, with the water domain insight reaching the 6th rank, the enhancement of other domains becomes a natural consequence. It just required some time for Wang Ting to comprehend, and he will naturally elevate them to the 6th rank. After all, his water talent had already reached the immortal level, making his insights into domains and even the power of laws much easier compared to regular warriors. After reviewing all these attribute bubbles, Wang Ting turned his attention to the last one. Origin of life. The fact that those 3 martial warriors unexpectedly released origin of life attributes was a pleasant surprise for Wang Ting. Wang Ting suddenly thought about their final outbursts and couldn't help but peek at the 3 of them, his expression becoming rather strange. These 3 guys probably didn't expect that their outbursts would benefit him, right? Origin of life attributes were not something you would typically stumble upon. Typically, respectable individuals would not drop origin of life attributes easily. It is only when you push your origin of life to a certain extent that it might surface. Wang Ting certainly lucked out this time. It seemed that in the future when he encountered enemies, he should exert some pressure. If you don't push them a bit, how would you know if they have hidden potential? There were 2,510 points of origin of life attributes in total. It wasn't much, but it wasn't little either. For Wang Ting, increasing his origin of life was always a good thing. After absorbing these attribute bubbles, he couldn't help but close his eyes contentedly, feeling his entire body trembling. Only one word: satisfying. He looked at his attributes board. Origin of life, 102510. The last time he broke through the cosmos stage, his origin of life attribute had just reached 100,000 points. Now, it had increased further. In reality, every increase in origin of life was a tremendous stroke of luck for a martial warrior. Sometimes, 1 point of origin of life could be a matter of life or death, let alone these 2,000 or more points of origin of life. Finally, Wang Ting looked towards the distant attribute bubbles. When he defeated the silver-horned man, the lady with long wavy hair, and the divine spirit master, they also released numerous attribute bubbles. In his view, the attribute bubbles from these 3 martial warriors must be better than the ones from the previous 3. That was why he saved them for last. After all, good things needed to be enjoyed slowly. The best rewards were meant to be enjoyed at the end. These attribute bubbles were like blind boxes, and nobody knew what was inside. But based on his experience, Wang Teng could make some educated guesses. This sense of anticipation only increased his excitement. Without further hesitation, he swiftly collected all the attribute bubbles with his spiritual power. The battle had just ended and the bubbles wouldn't disappear so quickly, which was why he waited until now to collect them. One by one, the attribute bubbles, under the influence of his spiritual power, soared towards Wang Teng and merged into his body. Fire Constellation Force *18500 Divine Level Fire Talent *5000 Cosmos Realm Spirit *8500 Universe Realm Enlightenment *9100 Fire Silk Finger *5800 Crimson Snake Spear *7000 Fire Domain *5600 Origin of Flame *1300 These attribute bubbles came from the Silver-Horned Man, and as Wang Teng had guessed, they contained more attributes than the previous 3 warriors. Most importantly, the Silver-Horned Man was a genuine fire element warrior. Among the various attributes, one of Wang Teng's preferred attributes to use was the fire attribute. As the attribute bubbles merged into Wang Teng's body, they transformed into pure constellation fire force, some circulated through his body, some entered his inner cosmos, and some entered his spiritual body, increasing his spiritual power. Some dissolved into his comprehension, boosting his understanding. 3 of the attribute bubbles gave rise to different insights in Wang Teng's mind. Almost simultaneously, in his mind, several human-shaped figures emerged. One figure was practicing a finger technique. As the figure pointed, flames condensed and turned into fiery columns bursting forth, accompanied by the presence of a mystical fire silkworm. Another figure demonstrated a spear technique, brandishing a battle spear that swirled into serpentine fire patterns, releasing incredible power. The last figure sat in a lotus position, exuding a strong fire domain power, creating a mystical and intense aura. Chapter 1957 Second Wood Spirit Body. Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold. Departure. 1. In Wang Teng's mind, 3 human-shaped light figures appeared, and 3 different insights were integrated into his memory. Fire Silk Finger. Crimson Snake Spear. Wang Teng's eyes gleamed, and he quickly absorbed the insights related to 2 martial arts techniques. The Fire Silk Finger was a universe stage battle technique. It was on par with the Tyrant's Finger. The reason the Silver-Horned Man's Fire Silk Finger seemed to be at a disadvantage when clashing with Wang Teng's Tyrant's Finger was mainly because the man underestimated Wang Teng, not because Fire Silk Finger was weak. If Wang Teng executed it, the Fire Silk Finger wouldn't be weaker than the Tyrant's Finger. B0XO. Obtaining another battle technique delighted Wang Teng. Fire Silk Finger, Universe Stage 4800 5000, well-versed, 5,800 points of attributes allowed Wang Teng's Fire Silk Finger to skip the foundation stage and reach the well-versed stage. He was just 200 points short of reaching the specialized level, which left Wang Teng somewhat frustrated. Without dwelling on it, he looked at the other battle technique, the Crimson Snake Spear. Undoubtedly, this was a spear-type battle technique and it was also at the Heaven stage. It was even slightly stronger than Fire Silk Finger, at least approaching the Eternal stage battle techniques. Spear-type battle techniques were rare. Even Wang Teng had only encountered a few of them. Those previous spear techniques didn't even reach the universe stage, so he wasn't interested in practicing them. However, this Crimson Snake Spear had reached the pinnacle of the universe stage, so Wang Teng reluctantly took a look, thinking it might come in handy in the future. Moreover, he had acquired a spear from the Silver-Horned Man, which he had just examined and found to be a high-quality universe-level weapon. He then looked at the attributes board. Crimson Snake Spear, Universe Stage 1000-8000, specialized, with 7,000 attribute points. Wang Teng's Crimson Snake Spear directly reached the specialized stage, which was a bit better than Fire Silk Finger. Then came the insights into the fire domain. The Silver-Horned Man's domain power had reached the 6th level, which provided significant assistance to Wang Teng's understanding of the fire domain. Wang Teng's fire domain merged into the flaming magnetic meteor domain. When he absorbed insights into the Earth domain earlier, the flaming magnetic meteor domain had already reached the 6th level, with the Earth domain holding more weight. The fire domain was at most at the 5th level. Now that the fire domain had been elevated, the flaming magnetic meteor domain also increased in rank. Flaming magnetic meteor domain, 3106,000, 6th rank, gaining 5,600 points in the fire domain didn't directly raise the attributes of the flaming magnetic meteor domain by 5,600 points. Instead, it increased by 2,900 points. This wasn't surprising, considering that the flaming magnetic meteor domain was a fusion of multiple domains, and an increase in one aspect wasn't enough to cover the entire domain. Nonetheless, the fire domain's advancement to the 6th level was helpful for Wang Ting's subsequent improvement of the 5-element sword domain. With these 3 insights boosted, another type of insight emerged in Wang Ting's mind, the enlightenment of the laws of origin. Insights into the laws of origin undoubtedly held a higher position than understandings into domains. Hence, they appeared only after the previous 3 insights had been absorbed. In Wang Ting's mind, a silhouette sat cross-legged. A peculiar insight into the laws of fire origin formed a series of runic symbols around him, resembling runic chains. The power of these runic symbols swept through Wang Ting's entire mind and gradually melded into his memory. It was as though these runic symbols had been etched into his memory. Origin of Flame, 1720,000, 2nd rank. Wang Ting's Origin of Flame had already reached the 2nd rank. He gained 1,300 points of it, allowing his comprehension of his origin of flame to rise. It was worth noting that the silver-horned man's insight into the laws of fire origin was indeed substantial, having reached the 2nd level. Otherwise, Wang Ting's insight wouldn't have progressed. Aside from that, there were some relatively ordinary attributes. In terms of force, Wang Ting's Constellation Fire Force rose, but it wasn't enough for a breakthrough. Constellation Fire Force, 33,000 50,000, Cosmos level 5th level, his talent remained at the Divine level. 5,000 points of Divine level Fire talent allowed Wang Ting's talent to rise. Divine level Fire talent, 11400 50,000. His spirit and enlightenment features increased as well. Then, he turned his attention to the attribute bubbles left behind by the woman with wavy long hair. He had his eyes on her wood element talent. Without any hesitation, he picked them up. Water Constellation Force * 15500 Divine Level Water Talent * 4600 Water Domain * 4200 Wood Constellation Force * 17600 Second Wood Spirit Body * 3500 Wood Domain * 6200 Cosmos Realm Spirit * 7800 Universe Realm Enlightenment * 1200 Second Wood Spirit Body. Wang Ting's eyes lit up with amazement as he felt a change in his body. This transformation was rapid and incredibly peculiar. In just a short time, Wang Ting's body underwent a complete metamorphosis. Suddenly, he had a sense that he could control all plant life. His gaze swept over the surroundings, and he immediately sensed the presence of some withered plants beneath the desert's surface. It seemed that even these lifeless plants could be revived and controlled by him through the second wood spirit body. It's a physique. Wang Ting's eyes shimmered. He was excited. What a rare find. Chapter 1958 Second Wood Spirit Body. Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold. Departure. 2. Second Wood Spirit Body, 3510,000, 1st rank. Currently, Wang Teng's Second Wood Spirit Body was only at the 1st rank. When Wang Teng acquired the Second Wood Spirit Body earlier, he gained some insight into this physique. He realized that a 1st-rank physique could control plant life at the planetary stage. To control more powerful plant life, he would need to advance the Second Wood Spirit Body to a higher level. It seemed that the long-haired woman had a limited understanding of the Second Wood Spirit Body. Otherwise, if she could control plant life at the cosmos stage, Wang Teng would have faced a significant challenge. With the Second Wood Spirit Body, the number of plant life forms he could control wasn't limited to just a few. As long as he had enough force in his body, he could control a continuous number of plant life forms. Just thinking about being surrounded by a bunch of cosmos realm plant lifeforms was enough to send shivers down one's spine. B0XO. Fortunately, he had eliminated the long-haired woman, and he had obtained this unique wood physique. Even if he encountered someone with similar or identical physiques in the future, he wouldn't need to fear. He was confident that his mastery of this physique would surpass others. This second wood spirit body is a very rare physique. It seems him quite lucky, Wang Teng thought with a slight smile. Next, Wang Teng directed his attention to two kinds of domain power. The water domain fused into the netherworld domain, raising the domain to the 6th rank. Netherworld domain, 1356,000, 6th rank. The increase wasn't substantial, adding only 1,000 attribute points to the netherworld domain from the opponent's 4,200 water domain attributes. Then, there was the wood domain. He received 6,200 points of it. It was quite a lot. The woman with the long wavy hair had a high level of comprehension in her wood domain, higher than her water domain. It was clear that her wood element abilities were her hidden trump card. She was forced to use them by Wang Teng. Wang Teng's wood domain had reached the 4th level actualization phase and the 5th level normal domain. Currently, the only attribute he received was the normal domain attribute. 6,200 points of attributes allowed his wood domain to reach the 6th rank of a normal domain. Wang Teng was only at the early stages of comprehending the actualization phase of domains, and he wasn't yet able to convert every type of domain into the actualized version. This would take time and practice. However, even achieving a regular 6th rank domain was rather remarkable. Most ordinary Cosmos stage martial warriors couldn't comprehend their domains to such an extent. Even prodigies found it challenging. If Wang Ting were to return to the Stellar Academies now, his strength would likely surpass most of the talents in the current cohort. The divine-level water talent he received from the long-haired lady was wasted again. Wang Ting felt helpless. Lastly, there were the attribute bubbles left behind by the Divine Spirit Master. Wang Ting's eyes sparkled with anticipation. The previous two hadn't disappointed him, and he hoped this last one wouldn't either. Without hesitation, he immediately collected all the attribute bubbles. Metal Constellation Force *16500 Divine Level Metal Talent *4300 Cosmos Realm Spirit *14500 Universe Realm Enlightenment *21,000 Phoenix Golden Feather Secret Scripture *3500 Phoenix Golden Feather Domain *6500 The Phoenix Golden Feather Secret Scripture. Wang Ting's eyes lit up. Without much thought, a scene began to play out in his mind. In an instant, his mind was filled with golden lights, weaving and converging into a mystical golden bird. This bird had long feathers and was bathed in golden light, with a golden mist surrounding it, giving it an aura of mystery. Moreover, it gazed exactly like the mystical golden phoenix displayed by the Divine Spirit Master earlier. Chirp! The mystical golden phoenix danced in mid-air, and its melodious chirping resonated, followed by countless golden light spots that disappeared into Wang Teng's mind. Wang Teng's comprehension also came to an end. I didn't think that I would be able to get a secret spirit cultivation scripture. Wang Teng's eyes shimmered. He was elated. This was a secret spiritual scripture. Every spiritual secret scripture was rare. What's more, the Phoenix Golden Feather secret scripture had reached the universe stage, and it wasn't even complete. The Divine Spirit Master only learned up to the universe stage. If it was complete, it could reach the eternal stage. An eternal stage spiritual secret scripture was an extremely precious and rare treasure. Moreover, this secret scripture combined cultivation methods and battle techniques. It even contained a method for forging a soul weapon. The soul weapon was none other than the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade that the Divine Spirit Master used before. Thinking of this weapon, a glint of determination flashed in Wang Teng's eyes. His soul power swept across the desert. Boom! 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 Beams of golden light swept through the sand, emerging from the desert, converging towards Wang Teng, and arriving by his side, flying around him. Kang Yu and little Chinga gazed over in surprise. Especially Kang Yu. There was a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Wasn't this golden light the weapon used by the divine spirit master? Oh right, this Zeli is a divine spirit master too? Wang Teng didn't pay attention to the expressions of the two of them. He extended a hand, and a golden light slowly descended into his palm. Chapter 1959 Second Wood Spirit Body. Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold. Departure. 3. It was the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. This was a special spiritual weapon that looked like the feather of a bird. This was the first time Wang Ting saw a spiritual weapon like this. He found it interesting, so he observed it carefully. The Phoenix Golden Feather Blade was forged using the Phoenix Golden Feather Secret Scripture. It could be used with the Phoenix Golden Feather Secret Scripture. Also, based on the Phoenix Golden Feather Secret Scripture, there were a total of 33,333 blade. When his spiritual power reached the cosmos realm, he could only 3,333 of them. Once his spiritual power reached the heaven realm, he could use 9,999 of them. B0XO. In short, the stronger his spiritual power, the more blades of the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade he could use, and the more powerful his attacks would be. However, the corresponding secret scripture needed to be used with the power of origin and domain. For instance, at the heaven realm, one needed to integrate the power of domain. At the universe realm, one needed to integrate the power of laws of origin. Otherwise, the attacks would only be superficial and easily broken through. However, without the support of the power of domain and even power of laws of origin, it would be impossible to use such a large number of Phoenix Golden Feather Blades. Casually manipulating thousands or even tens of thousands of Phoenix Golden Feather Blades wasn't a problem, but to form a significant attack, a corresponding technique was required. This was the importance of spiritual secret skills. At this point, Wang Teng recovered a total of 4,999 pieces of Phoenix Golden Feather Blades from the desert around him, which was a considerable quantity. This was the maximum limit that Tang Cheng could control. If there were more feathers, it would be beyond his control. With only these 4,999 feathers, Wang Teng had already witnessed their power. If it weren't for his powerful mixed domain and the support of his power of origin, he would likely have a hard time defeating his opponent. It can only be said that Tang Cheng was rather unlucky to run into Wang Ting. Wang Ting's eyes sparkled with surprise when he discovered that all these Phoenix Golden Feather Blades were undamaged, without a single one missing. After enduring the bombardment of his flaming magnetic meteor domain, these Phoenix Golden Feather Blades were still perfectly intact, which was truly surprising. A universe-level spiritual weapon. Wang Ting activated his real eye, examining the internal structure and forging substances of the Phoenix Golden Feather Blades. He muttered to himself thoughtfully, "These materials are very special, it seems to be, Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold." As he observed the internal structure of these materials, he was shocked. He couldn't help but curse. Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold. It was the Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold. Wang Ting carefully examined it, using his real eye to see the intricate patterns inside. He was now absolutely certain. Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold had distinctive gold-colored patterns on its surface and inside, reminiscent of blood. Even when forged into weapons, these internal patterns remained. Normally, a Grandmaster blacksmith might be able to recognize it by various external signs, but it would require broad experience. However, Wang Teng, through his real eye, could directly see the internal structure, making it incredibly easy for him to identify the material. At this moment, he was deeply shocked. Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold. It was truly unbelievable that such material was used for forging. Wang Ting even felt like scolding Tang Cheng as a wastrel for using Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold to forge a universal-level spiritual weapon. What Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold? Round Ball's voice was heard too. It asked curiously, "Wang Ting, where's the Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold?" "See, it's right here." Wang Teng raised his hand and showed it the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade in his palm. "Really?" Round Ball was puzzled. "Of course. Don't you believe my judgment?" Wang Teng replied. Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold. Round Ball still found it inconceivable and couldn't calm down. it excitedly said. Wang Ting, quickly, take one piece and let me examine it. Wang Ting nodded and stored one piece inside his space fragment for Roundball to study. After a short while, the amazed voice of the Roundball echoed out. It's really the Phoenix blood crimson gold. You're right. This is unbelievable. It's said that this material evolves in a unique environment after being bathed in the blood of the universe behemoth, Phoenix, making it incredibly rare and scarce. I never expected to see it here today. Wastrel. This is too luxurious. That guy used Phoenix blood crimson gold to craft a universal-level spiritual weapon. With such an exceedingly rare material like Phoenix blood crimson gold, he could easily craft eternal-level or even divine-level weapons, and there'd be plenty to spare. The voice of Roundball continued to echo with a series of exclamations, revealing its excitement. It shared Wang Teng's perspective, deeming the Divine Spirit Master as extremely extravagant for crafting a universal-level spiritual weapon with Phoenix blood crimson gold, considering the preciousness of the material. Both of them were Grandmaster blacksmiths, and they valued such an exceedingly rare material more than a peerless beauty. Seeing someone wasting it in such a manner naturally upset them. Fortunately, Phoenix blood crimson gold is relatively malleable. Even if it's been used this way, you can still remove it, Wang Teng replied wryly. You're right, Roundball responded, nodding. With your divine flames, even such a challenging material can be extracted. Chapter 1962 Wood Spirit Body. Phoenix blood crimson gold. Departure. 4. Both of them breathed a sigh of relief. The important thing was that they could refine the material. Otherwise, such precious material would have gone to waste. Even if they were to resurrect Tang Cheng and kill him 100 times, it still wouldn't make up for wasting this Phoenix blood-red gold. If Tang Cheng knew that he was considered inferior to a piece of material in Wang Ting and Roundball's eyes, he would probably collapse on the spot. Wang Ting immediately kept the Phoenix golden feather blades. These were treasures. Such valuable items couldn't be left behind. He even swept his spiritual power once again, carefully searching to make sure no Phoenix golden feather blades were overlooked before feeling at ease. B0XO. Once Wang Ting's mood had settled, he couldn't help but shake his head with some regret. It's a shame that Guy only learned up to the universe stage. This secret scripture was good, but unfortunately, it could only be cultivated up to the cosmos stage. Well, I should be content, Wang Ting couldn't help but chuckle. He recognized he had been too greedy, trying to get everything at once. Obtaining this spiritual secret scripture was already a stroke of luck. Tang Cheng wanted to get the Buddha's Sutra from Wang Teng, but he didn't succeed. Not only did he fail, he also lost his own life in the process. In the end, Wang Teng took his spiritual secret scripture. It was quite a pitiful outcome for Tang Cheng. Wang Teng didn't think too much. He looked at the attributes board. Phoenix Golden Feather Secret Scripture, Universe Level Times Incomplete 508,000, Well-Versed, 3,500 points can only be raised to the well-versed stage. Wang Teng was somewhat astonished, but not overly so. Since the Phoenix Golden Feather Secret Scripture was an eternal stage secret scripture, it was normal for it to require a higher amount of attribute points. After comprehending this secret scripture, another revelation surfaced in Wang Teng's mind. Phoenix Golden Feather Domain. This was a domain enlightenment. What's more, it was a domain compatible with the Phoenix Golden Feather Secret Scripture. Wang Ting closed his eyes and quickly absorbed and digested this realization. His eyes seemed to radiate an odd golden light, as if a golden divine phoenix was soaring within. The Phoenix Golden Feather Domain was a domain formed by the fusion of metal and spiritual power. It was similar to Wang Ting's black metal domain. However, there were essential differences between the two. The Phoenix Golden Feather Domain needed to be used with the Phoenix Golden Feather Blade. When activated, the domain's power would manifest as a divine gold phoenix, possessing formidable might. The black metal domain was a domain enlightened by Lan, a divine spirit master from the Mecha race. It was extremely powerful. However, from Wang Ting's point of view, the Phoenix Golden Feather Domain was stronger. While Lan was undoubtedly talented, when compared to the genius martial artists of the stellar academies, he did have some shortcomings in terms of overall strength. Furthermore, this secret scripture seemed to excel in certain aspects. Wang Teng wondered if the Phoenix Golden Feather secret scripture was obtained by Tang Cheng through the Academy's exchange system. He hadn't forgotten that the Academy's treasure pavilion contained a vast array of martial arts and battle technique scriptures, which could be exchanged using Academy points. In this regard, the Academy's resources and accumulated knowledge were unparalleled compared to most external forces. As for Lan, who was financially dependent on Wang Teng, it was clear that he couldn't compare to the Academy's elite students. Phoenix Golden Feather Domain, 504,000, 4th rank, with a total of 6,500 feature points, Wang Teng successfully acquired the 4th rank of the Phoenix Golden Feather Domain, which was a significant accomplishment. Tang Cheng's domain was at least at the 6th rank, so it wasn't surprising that Wang Teng's domain rose to the 4th rank with its help. Unfortunately, there were no additional benefits to be gained. The Divine Spirit Master was dead. The Phoenix Golden Feather Domain feature was destined to be a special attribute. Normal Divine Spirit Masters wouldn't have this attribute. Besides these, the Spiritual Spirit Master also dropped a lot of Constellation Metal Force. There were 16,500 points of it in total. Constellation Metal Force, 268,050,000, Cosmos Stage 5th level. Wang Teng's Constellation Metal Force had already reached the 5th level of the Cosmos Stage, but he didn't achieve another breakthrough this time. However, he did gain a significant increase in his power. In addition to that, Wang Teng acquired a Divine Level Metal Talent with a total of 4,300 points, greatly boosting his Divine Level Metal Talent. Divine Level Metal Talent, 138,050,000. The increase in talent allowed Wang Teng to have a more sensitive perception of his Constellation Metal Force. He could even touch the power of laws of metal origin faintly. The closer he was to the immortal level, the clearer this feeling was. This was one of the benefits of talent enhancement. Then, there was the spirit attribute. As a Divine Spirit Master, Tang Cheng's spirit feature was much higher than the other martial warriors. He dropped 14,500 points of it. Adding the spirit attributes of the Silver-Horned Man and the lady with long wavy hair, he had a total of 30,800 point. Spirit, 734,002,00000, Cosmos Realm. Wang Teng's spirit feature surged by over 30,000 points, and he could instantly feel his spiritual power increasing at a visible rate. A sense of spiritual fullness welled up in his mind, causing a slight throbbing sensation between his eyebrows as if his spiritual power was about to burst forth. However, this was merely an illusion during the enhancement process. With his current level of spiritual power, he had not reached the pinnacle of the Cosmos Realm, so there was no way for it to overflow. Finally, there was the enlightenment attribute. As the Divine Spirit Master had strong spirit attributes, his enlightenment was also higher than others. He released a total of 21,000 points of enlightenment attributes, and with the addition of the other two individuals' enlightenment attributes, the total was 38,300 points. Chapter 1961 Second Wood Spirit Body, Phoenix Blood Crimson Gold. Departure. 5. Wang Teng's enlightenment attribute increased exponentially. Enlightenment, 1910003000000, Universe Realm. Upon seeing the change in his enlightenment attribute, Wang Teng couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Unknowingly, his Heaven Realm enlightenment attribute had almost reached 200,000 points. When he had just reached the Heaven Realm, he had found the 300,000 points upper limit quite troublesome. He hadn't expected that in such a short time, he would increase his enlightenment attribute to nearly 200,000 points. He was only 100,000 points away from the next stage. Wang Teng suddenly felt that he had been too naive. He had underestimated the geniuses in the universe. The universe was vast, and there were many talented martial artists. Various rare attributes naturally wouldn't be scarce, not to mention the enlightenment attribute that everyone possess. B0XO. Looking at these geniuses, all of them had Heaven Realm enlightenment. As long as he could knock points out of them, those points were practically guaranteed. Therefore, he didn't need to worry about attribute points at all. He just had to exploit these geniuses to his heart's content. Wang Ting nodded inwardly, his goal became even clearer. He had to exploit these geniuses for all they were worth. After collecting the attribute bubbles dropped by the enemies, there were also the bubbles dropped by his side. There was nothing much to say about Little White and Elizabeth's attribute bubbles. Wang Ting had them already. However, Kang Yu dropped several useful poison element attribute bubbles. She dropped 18,500 points of constellation poison force, significantly boosting Wang Teng's constellation poison force. Poison constellation force, 3430050,000, Cosmos stage 5th level, not bad. At this rate, my constellation poison force will soon break through the 6th level. Wang Ting's eyes brightened, and he felt a pleasant surprise. In addition to the star power, Kang Yu also dropped a considerable number of poison domain attribute bubbles. Wang Ting's poison domain had already reached the 4th rank. Kang Yu's poison domain was much higher than his, so it was of great help to him. Poison domain, 4355,000, 5th rank, 5th rank. After absorbing Kang Yu's domain attribute bubbles, Wang Ting's poison domain directly advanced from the 4th level to the 5th level. Apart from this, there were no other attribute bubbles worth noting. As he reviewed all his property values, Wang Ting let out a sigh of relief and felt completely satisfied with his gains. This sense of fulfillment was incredibly refreshing. Gathering these attributes led to an incredible transformation of his strength, significantly improving his power. The members of the Swift Wing team couldn't possibly have imagined that they had become the source of Wang Teng's attribute enhancement. To put it in perspective, it had only taken a moment for Wang Teng to increase his strength with their attributes. Kang Yu and Little Chinga had just seen Wang Ting pick up the scattered phoenix golden feather blades in the desert, and after hesitating for a moment as if quietly communicating with each other, it seemed they had reached a decision. They were about to speak when they noticed Wang Ting looking over at them. He approached them. "Wait." Kang Yu's slightly cold voice came from behind her veil. Her expression was concealed, but her complicated emotions were evident in her beautiful eyes. Wang Ting was momentarily surprised and couldn't help but glance at the two of them. He noticed that not only Kang Yu but Little Chinga also wore similar complex expressions. He couldn't help but feel somewhat speechless. "Wang Ting, you're suspected." Round Ball gloated. "Well, it's not surprising," Wang Ting sighed, recognizing that he had displayed too much to go unnoticed. Unless the other person was blind. "You're not Zelly." Kang Yu stared at Wang Ting and stated slowly. "If I'm not Zelly, who am I?" Wang Ting opened his arms as if to let the other party see his face clearly. He was making one last effort to convince them. "While we can't see any issues with you, there's no way Zelly could possess the level of power you do," Kang Yu spoke with a serious tone. At this moment, Elizabeth, Little White, and the metal armor flaming scorpion noticed the tense atmosphere and flew over. "Master." Elizabeth descended from the sky and asked softly. Kang Yu turned serious. She had just witnessed the strength of these spiritual pets up close. If the other party made a move, she might not be able to stop them. "It's fine, you all can go back for now." Wang Ting waved his hand and stored these 3 colossal creatures in his space fragment. Kang Yu was surprised. She hadn't expected him to put away the 3 spiritual pets. After the previous battles, he should be in a less than optimal condition. She couldn't help but wonder why he wasn't worried about her suddenly attacking. Wang Ting didn't pay much attention to what Kang Yu was thinking and asked, "If I told you that I mean no harm, would you believe me?" A sharp glint flashed past Kang Yu's eyes. He admitted it. Indeed, this person wasn't Zelly. For some reason, when he confessed, she felt a tinge of disappointment. "Where's my daddy?" Little Chinga heard Wang Ting's words and stared at him intently. Her face was a little pale as she asked hesitantly. Wang Ting glanced at Little Chinga and waved his hand. He took Zelly out of his space fragment. "I'm sorry. Your father suffered a little because of the special circumstances, but his life isn't in danger." Zelly's body landed on the ground. He was still unconscious. "Daddy." Little Chinga immediately rushed over, initially worried, but upon seeing that Zelly wasn't seriously hurt, she breathed a sigh of relief. "Hes fine." Kang Yu walked over to take a look and said to little Chinga, "Well then, I should take my leave." Wang Ting's form gradually changed back into a human appearance. "Extraterrestrial human," Kang Yu exclaimed in astonishment as she looked at the black-haired young man in front of her. "My apologies, it wasn't intentional. I had some matters to attend to in the Rui Snake City. Also, I haven't killed any members of the snake race." Wang Ting felt it was necessary to explain. He didn't want to be wrongly accused. "You." Kang Yu's expression became even more complex. She was disposed to believe the man's words. The black-haired young man had just saved their lives, and he had also assisted little Chinga in awakening her bloodline. Without all this, she wouldn't have chosen to trust Wang Teng. All of this left a silent and unspoken trust between them. But that was it. When it came to the alien humans, Kang Yu couldn't completely eradicate her vigilance. "I've said all I need to say. Whether you believe it or not is up to you. I'm leaving. We might meet again in the future." Wang Ting looked at the two of them intently, then ascended into the air, instantly turning into a streak of dazzling light, disappearing on the horizon. Kang Yu and little Chinga were left standing there, looking at each other in silence. Little Chinga opened her mouth, intending to say something, but eventually kept it to herself. "Let's go," Kang Yu said calmly. "Master, do you think he..." Little Chinga began to speak but then stopped. There was a complicated expression in her eyes. The scenes from their previous interactions kept flashing through her mind, making it impossible for her to forget. Kang Yu shook her head and didn't say anything more. She led little Chinga into the sky, and they too transformed into beams of light, vanishing into the desert. Chapter 1962 Attack of the Poison Tide. 1. After parting with Kang Yu and little Chinga, Wang Ting changed his direction and flew towards Rui Snake City. Landon was still in Rui Shi City. He needed to go there. As for Kang Yu and little Chinga, he didn't think too much. He had already received the benefits. The primordial oceanic serpent bloodline was undoubtedly the greatest gain this time. He had unexpectedly obtained more than he had anticipated. Since he couldn't use Zelly's identity to enter Rui Snake City, Wang Teng could only hide and sneak in. However, it wouldn't be as convenient as before. B0XO. Landon was acting quite strange. When he went out with Kang Yu and the others, he didn't move at all and stayed in the city. Wang Teng decided to go back and take a closer look. If all else failed, he would resort to using his enchantment ability. He would make Landon his slave, and at that time, he would know everything. However, this method was more effective on people with weaker spiritual power. It carried more risk when used on geniuses like Landon. That was why he hesitated to use enchantment thus far. Wang Ting arrived at Rui Snake City before Kang Yu and the others. He hid himself and sneaked into the city. Then, he casually assumed the appearance of a snake man and walked around the city. He stationed himself outside the central castle's prison and decided to wait for another 3 days. If Landon didn't take any action by then, Wang Ting would intervene himself. He had no time to waste. This fellow was good at waiting. He was so patient. Wang Ting felt frustrated. "Wang Ting, those 2 snake ladies are probably back. Why don't you go take a look?" Round Ball piped up. "Why should I? We met briefly, and from now on, we're just strangers," Wang Teng replied casually. "TSK, come on. The way those 2 snake women looked at you back then was definitely different," Round Ball teased. "Don't talk nonsense. I'm a serious person. I don't fool around with anyone," Wang Teng said solemnly. Yes, you're a serious person, extremely serious when you're fooling around," Round Ball quipped. Wang Ting. This fellow was getting more and more sarcastic. Even he wasn't its match. On the other side, little Chinga and Kang Yu had returned to the Rui Shi City. Kang Yu sent little Chinga and Zelly back to their house. Little Chinga had just settled Zelly in his room when she heard a soft moan. Zelly rubbed his head and gradually regained consciousness, still looking a bit confused. "Daddy, you're awake." Little Chinga flew over, grabbed his hand, and excitedly called out, "Little Chinga!" Zeli was shocked when he saw his daughter. His eyes regained some clarity and he quickly asked, "Little Chinga, did any strangers come to our house? Did anything happen to you?" Kang Yu and little Chinga's gaze turned strange. "Daddy, I'm fine. Do you remember who knocked you out?" Little Chinga asked. Zeli paused for a moment, then he felt a sudden headache, especially at the back of his head. It seemed like there were a few big bumps. He touched it, and sucked in a cold breath. "Ouch, it hurts." Kang Yu's expression became even more peculiar. There was a hint of anger in little Chinga's eyes. She seemed to be blaming someone for hitting her father so hard. Look at the back of his head. It was swollen. But, when she remembered the fate of the extraterrestrial humans, she felt that this was a light punishment. This fellow was a weirdo. Before I lost consciousness, I only saw a pair of crimson eyes, and then I can't remember what happened. Every time I woke up, I was knocked out by someone, and they did it several times. It hurt so much, Zeli finally remembered, gritting his teeth. However, he had no idea who had knocked him out the whole time. Cough, Daddy, it's better not to comprehend who it is. If someone can knock you out without a sound, they must be very powerful. It's best if we don't know. Little Chinga consoled. Little Chinga, why do I feel that you know something? Zeli looked suspicious, and his expression suddenly changed. Has that jerk done something to you? Have you met him? Well, Daddy, if I say it's a misunderstanding, would you believe me? Little Chinga peeked at Kang Yu and said hesitantly, "Misunderstanding?" Zeli was stunned. He stared at little Chinga with wide eyes. He felt like he was about to lose his daughter whom he had raised for over a decade. He had suffered so much, getting knocked out multiple times, and now his daughter was saying it was a misunderstanding. Suddenly, he felt like crying. Little Chinga observed her father's expression and felt a bit embarrassed. She didn't know how to face him. Your injuries exist, not a problem at all. If he wanted to kill you, he would have done so already. Kang Yu spoke calmly at this point. Lord Sang-yu. Zeli finally noticed Kang Yu's presence. He was surprised and wanted to get up. No need to get up, Kang Yu waved her hand. Lord Sang-yu, have you seen that person too? Zeli sat on the bed and bowed slightly. Kang Yu nodded and said, the energy in little Chinga's body has been completely settled and she has roused the strongest bloodline power in our race. And it was that person who helped resolve it. Without him, not even I could have roused little Chinga. What? Zeli was both surprised and delighted. Little Chinga's energy has been resolved, and she has roused our race's most powerful bloodline? Chapter 1963 Attack of the Poison Tide. 2. Yes, Kang Yu nodded patiently. She preferred the previous fellow. This Zeli was seriously. Given that he was little Chinga's father, she decided to hold back her sarcastic remarks and kept her thoughts to herself. Daddy, look, little Chinga extended her hands, and a peculiar energy spread out from her, forming a terrifying giant python shadow that coiled around her body. Zeli was astonished. He felt a tremendous bloodline pressure as he witnessed the giant python's phantom. His eyes betrayed a hint of shock. Moreover, he sensed that little Chinga's aura had reached the planetary stage, specifically the 7th level. This transformation was strikingly different from her previous state. What happened when he was not around? B0XO. Zeli suddenly felt like he had missed one of the most important events in his daughter's life, and it wasn't about getting married. Daddy, are you okay? Little Chinga asked with some concern, afraid that he might be overwhelmed by the revelation. I'm fine. I'm delighted. This is a wonderful thing. Zeli shook his head repeatedly, his words somewhat incoherent. He was genuinely excited. Regardless of his lingering grievances, little Chinga's issues were resolved. This not only saved her life but also opened the doors to an extraordinary future. At this moment, any lingering resentment he held was insignificant. In that case, I must thank that person. It was he who helped you resolve your energy issue. Zeli continued, anyway, where is he? Has he left? Yes, he left, little Chinga replied. Why did he leave? You should have asked him to stay and let me thank him properly, Zelly said. Little Chinga was speechless. Daddy, this wasn't what you uttered just now. Little Chinga, put away the illusion. Until you've matured, don't casually reveal your bloodline power, said Sangyu as she waved her hand to seal off the room, speaking with a serious tone. All right. Little Chinga was stunned for a moment before nodding hurriedly. Yes, quickly put it away. You mustn't let too many people know about your bloodline power, Zelly chimed in, realizing the importance of keeping this secret. I understand, Little Chinga replied and promptly retracted the giant python illusion from her body. As the illusion disappeared, the subtle yet palpable pressure that filled the room dissipated. Zelly quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Among them, his cultivation was the weakest, so he felt the pressure most acutely. Even Kang Yu felt significant pressure under the looming shadow of the giant python. Little Chinga, who is the person who assisted you to complete your awakening? Is he from our Rui Snake City? Zelly asked curiously. Hez, an extraterrestrial human. Little Chinga hesitated before replying. Extraterrestrial human. Zelly was shocked. He hadn't expected that it would be someone from the extraterrestrial race. But he was puzzled. Why would an extraterrestrial being help Little Chinga? Little Chinga explained what happened. Is there a reason why this extraterrestrial being came to our Rui Snake City? Zelly frowned. However, he didn't kill anyone from our race. This means that he isn't a bad person. I heard that not all extraterrestrial humans are bad. Some extraterrestrial humans treat us with fairness as well. At the same time, he was enlightened. Little Chinga's issue had been troubling them for a long time, and even peak heaven stage martial warriors like Kang Yu couldn't resolve it. It seemed that only the incredibly powerful and mysterious extraterrestrial beings might be able to address it. Getting the help of an extraterrestrial being was an immense stroke of luck for Little Chinga. Kang Yu didn't say much but had a contemplative look. She was lost in thought. When Little Chinga heard Zelly's words, a spark of joy crossed her eyes, and her lips curled up slightly, showing her happiness. Now that Little Chinga's bloodline has fully awakened, I hope to have her by my side for guidance, so as not to waste her talent, Kang Yu suddenly said. Zelly was momentarily taken aback and then fell into silence. He hadn't expected that right after Little Chinga's awakening, he would have to face the issue of parting with her. However, he understood that what Kang Yu said was true. With Little Chinga's current awakened bloodline, there wasn't much he could teach her, and it would be better for someone like Kang Yu, a strong martial warrior, to guide her. Master, Little Chinga looked at her father and then at Kang Yu. She wanted to say something but hesitated. You can come back to visit occasionally. We won't be too far away, Kang Yu said softly. Little Chinga, what Lord Kang Yu said is right. You've awakened your bloodline talent, and it shouldn't go to waste. I, as your father, can't teach you much. Only by staying with Kang Yu can your bloodline talent be fully realized, Zelly spoke with a heavy tone. And as Lord Kang Yu mentioned, you can always come back for a visit. It's not like you won't be able to return. Daddy. Little Chinga looked at Zelly, her voice choked with emotion. Don't be like this. Your dad is a grown man. Can't he take care of himself? Zelly ruffled her small head and smiled. Your cooking is terrible, Little Chinga chuckled. For some reason, she suddenly believed of another person whose cooking was far better than her dad's. Even his medicinal pills were much better. She had believed that her daddy had improved after years of experience, but in the end, she realized that he wasn't her daddy. Chapter 1964 Attack of the Poison Tide. 3. What a dramatic turn of events. The other person appeared to be a young man not much older than herself. Thinking about the days when she acted coquettish with him, a blush appeared on Little Chinga's pretty face. You little girl, are you complaining about your daddy? Zelly said with a hint of exasperation. The two of them shared a few laughs, and the earlier somber atmosphere dissipated. Kang Yu then bid her farewells, promising to come and pick up Little Chinga the next day. On the other side, Wang Ting had waited for 3 days, growing increasingly impatient with the lack of action from Landon. He decided to take matters into his own hands that evening. B0XO. Calm time flew by, and the sky gradually darkened, quickly approaching dusk. Wang Teng sat cross-legged on the rooftop of a snakeman's building. The shadows cast in the corners covered his figure. He even executed the shadow-merging secret skill to blend into the shadows, making him invisible to outsiders. At this moment, he suddenly opened his eyes, gazing at the distant sky, and furrowed his brow. Bang! 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 At the same time, a distant and resonant bell echoed throughout the entire Rui Snake City, spreading across the entire city. 9 tolls of the bell. The sound reverberated continuously, lingering in the air for an extended period. At this moment, it was supposed to be the evening, and many snakemen were preparing to return home. However, as the bell rang, the entire city became chaotic and agitated. They rushed out of their houses, looking towards the sky. Some of the snakemen martial warriors even soared into the air, gazing into the distant sky, their expressions turning extremely grim and troubled. Poison tide. It's the poison tide. Panic and alarmed voices echoed throughout the city, spreading instantly. Countless snakemen appeared outside buildings, their expressions filled with fear. Even some children seemed to know what the poison tide was. They either clung to the adults or burst into tears. Clearly, the poison tide was a terrifying presence that could frighten children. Poison tide. Wang Teng was astounded. He asked in his heart, "Round Ball, do you know what this poison tide is?" It seems to be a peculiar natural disaster from Scorpion Kingstar, somewhat similar to the earlier vortex of air currents. Round Ball immediately responded, her voice grave. But this poison tide seems to be even more horrifying. This toxin tide is more frightening than the air current vortex. Wang Teng exclaimed. Yes, the poison tide is composed of various poisonous substances and forms a fog containing various deadly toxins. Wherever it passes, almost everything is corroded, and nothing can grow for a long time. It's extremely terrifying, Round Ball explained. Why didn't you tell me about something this terrifying earlier? Wang Teng was exasperated. The appearance of the poison tide is completely unpredictable. Some people could stay here for a year and not encounter it, while others might come across it in just a few days. So, what's the use of me telling you? Round Ball replied. I can't help but feel like you're dissing me, Wang Teng murmured. Not only had he encountered the air current vortex, but now he was facing the toxin tide, both within a short span of time. What kind of luck was this? Wang Teng was beginning to wonder if his recent run of luck attributes was running low. Unfortunately, luck attributes were something you couldn't seek out. They were rare and happened by chance. Now what should we do? Should we try to escape quickly? Round Ball asked. Looking at these snake men. They seem extremely anxious, but they don't appear to be planning to escape. They might have some means of defense. Let's wait and see, Wang Teng said, as he gazed at the castle ahead. Groups of snakemen martial warriors were seen appearing, maintaining order and organizing the snakemen to evacuate towards the northwest of the Rui Snake City. The snakemen were highly cooperative, moving in an orderly fashion towards the northwest of the city. However, due to the large number of people in the city, it still seemed somewhat chaotic. At this moment, the poison tide in the distance was getting closer and closer. Swaths of dark green mist spread across the sky like waves, expanding rapidly. Its range was so vast that it covered the entire sky, with no end in sight. No wonder the snakemen had not abandoned the city. With such a wide-ranging toxin tide, there was nowhere to escape. Boom! A thunderous roar echoed, and along with it, various rustling and hissing noises emanated from within the dark green toxin tide, as if countless venomous creatures and toxins were crawling and flying within it, making it extremely eerie. Along the way, wherever the toxin tide passed, almost all vegetation withered and died, even though many of these plants themselves contained deadly toxins. For some unknown reason, they couldn't withstand the poison tide's corrosive power. Some of the wild animals in the jungle were even more pitiful. They were corroded and reduced to skeletal remains. The scene was truly terrifying, and it was no wonder the snakemen were in such a panic. Wang Ting gazed into the distance, his brow furrowing. He felt an indescribable sense of oppression sweeping in from the horizon, about to envelop the city. This toxin tide is frightening. Round Ball remained silent for a while, her voice sounding somewhat dry. Let's see if the snake men can withstand it, Wang Ting said. As he spoke, powerful figures within the city soared into the sky, flying towards the palace. Before long, they were hovering above the palace, transforming into several snake men. Wang Ting recognized one of them. It was the Heaven Stage martial warrior from the snake race who caught Zhigu and Landon. His name was Marong. Boom. Just at that moment, an even more powerful aura erupted from within the palace, and a graceful figure appeared in the sky. Chapter 1965 Attack of the Poison Tide. 4. The figure was dressed in lavish snakemen attire, a unique costume that fell somewhere between armor and a long gown, exuding an air of nobility and beauty. She wore a golden crown atop her head, adding a touch of majesty. The crown was exceptionally unique, taking the form of a serpent as if multiple pythons converged to form it. At the front, a peculiar-looking serpent opened its mouth, within which was embedded a gemstone. Your Majesty. The Heaven Stage martial warriors from the snake race lowered their heads and bowed respectfully when they saw this lady. So this is the queen of the snake race. Wang Ting was surprised. He gazed up at the palace with a surprised expression. His brow furrowed as he remarked, "Why does she seem somewhat familiar?" Kang Yu. Wang Ting suddenly widened his eyes, and another figure emerged in his mind. Even though Kang Yu was dressed very modestly while the snake men queen appeared in luxurious attire, Wang Ting still detected a hint of familiarity from the back of both figures. Moreover, both of them wore veils that covered most of their faces, leaving only a pair of mesmerizing eyes exposed. Those eyes were equally captivating, not like those of an ordinary woman, but it was precisely when he saw those eyes that Wang Ting's brow furrowed even deeper. They are different. The eyes of the two individuals, the expressions are completely different. Wang Ting's speculations were instantly shattered. One's eyes couldn't deceive, and it was clear that the snakemen queen was not Kang Yu. I almost thought it was Kang Yu too, Roundball said, but there are some differences between the two. That's right. Wang Ting nodded. At this moment, the snakemen queen's voice was heard. It echoed in the air. Activate the array. Yes. The Heaven Stage martial warriors replied in unison. As soon as she gave the command, they transformed into streaks of colorful light and rushed towards the surroundings of the Rui Snake City, evidently going to activate the formation. Boom. Before long, a luminous screen rose around the Rui Snake City, forming a greenish inverted bowl-shaped light barrier that enveloped the entire city. The light barrier was adorned with countless ancient runes, appearing highly intricate and mysterious, interweaving like chains of runic symbols to form the complete formation. This is an ancient runic formation. Wang Ting's eyes widened in surprise. The snake men gave him many surprises. He hadn't expected to find an ancient runic formation inscribed within this city. It was a genuine and unexpected revelation. Wang Ting scanned the array and saw attribute bubbles popping out. Huh! There are attribute bubbles. Wang Ting exclaimed in his heart. He released his spiritual power and picked up the attribute bubbles. Ancient Poison Runes *150 Ancient Poison Runes *120 Ancient Poison Runes. It's a special ancient runes. It looks like him quite lucky. Wang Ting was astounded. One by one, the attribute bubbles of the ancient poison runes merged into Wang Ting's mind, turning into enlightenment. In an instant, in his mind, strange greenish runes appeared one after another, exuding an eerie power that permeated his consciousness. Wang Ting was enlightened. He instilled the ancient poison runes into his memory. At the same time, his ancient runes attribute started rising. Ancient runes, 2653,000, well-versed, Wang Ting had gathered a considerable number of ancient poison runes attribute bubbles this time, directly increasing his ancient runes attribute by over 1,000 points. He was just a step away from breaking through the well-versed stage and reaching the specialized stage. Not bad. Wang Ting was extremely satisfied. For him, these attribute values were a free gain, a pleasant surprise. In reality, compared to the increase in his ancient runes attribute, Wang Ting was more concerned about acquiring another type of ancient runic symbol. Including the ancient lightning runes and the ancient ice runes, he had 3 special ancient runes now. This was a considerable achievement. For a rune grandmaster, this kind of accomplishment would undoubtedly bring immense satisfaction. Most rune grandmasters would consider it a great fortune to master one type of unique ancient runic symbol. Now, Wang Ting had 3, showcasing his profound foundation. However, he didn't have much time to dwell on this. The poison tide in the distance was approaching relentlessly, the sky darkening completely, creating a feeling of being shrouded in perpetual darkness. Boom! Shortly after the array was activated, the horrifying poison tide had approached, crashing directly against the array. Slap! Sounds of impact resounded from the array, and Wang Ting looked up, feeling his scalp tingle. Countless venomous creatures had landed on the formation, including ferocious venomous scorpions, giant poisonous centipedes the size of an arm, pustule-covered poisonous toads, and various unidentified toxic creatures. With just one glance, it was impossible to count them all. In such a situation, it was no wonder that the snake men, who regularly dealt with venomous creatures, found it extremely terrifying. Sizzle, various venoms sprayed onto the formation, making a hissing sound and corroding it. The formation's radiance continued to flicker, creating a sense of trepidation. Some distance away, the queen of the snake men race and the other heaven stage martial warriors stared at the array above them grimly. This formation was their only means of defense. In the past, it had repelled several poison tides. This time, would it still be able to hold? Chapter 1966 Attack of the Poison Tide. 5. Time slowly passed, and the poison tide in the sky had not dissipated. It continued to sweep over the Rui Snake City from above. Its target was not solely the Rui Snake City. It was merely passing through from this location. However, this poison tide seemed unusually massive, and even after such a long time, it had not completely passed. Your Majesty. The faces of the Snake Men Heaven Stage martial warriors turned pale as they sensed the danger. Their eyes turned solemn as they looked at their queen. The poison tide is more ferocious than before. The Snake Men Queen opened her mouth. There was a hint of seriousness in her voice as she said, "Go to the nodes of the array and instill your force into it. Maintain the operation of the array until the poison tide ends." Yes. The Heaven Stage martial warriors rushed towards the nodes of the arrays around the city again. At first, they thought that the array could withstand the attacks, but now it seemed they had to take action as well. Boom! 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 A few explosions occurred, and beams of light erupted around the array. The array, which had seemed on the verge of collapse, gradually stabilized as these light beams rose, as if infused with a powerful force. Wang Ting watched this scene with increasing amazement. This array can be powered by the force of martial warriors. The person who inscribed this formation must have a very high level of skill. He mused to himself with a glint in his eyes. Ordinary formations could only be sustained by energy stones because the force within energy stones was sufficiently pure and did not lead to repulsion. The forces within martial warriors' bodies were different for each individual. If the array were powered by the forces of multiple martial warriors, their forces would clash, and the array would inevitably collapse. However, this formation did not experience such issues. It could only mean that the person who inscribed the array had a high level of skill. They had likely inscribed runes that converted the type of forces used by martial warriors, allowing their forces to be refined and become the fuel for the formation. This process may seem simple but wasn't easy. Without a certain level of expertise, it was impossible to integrate it into a mature formation. However, even with the input of the force from several Heaven Stage martial warriors, the array could not hold on for long. Soon, the formation began to emit cracking sounds as cracks appeared under the corrosion of countless toxic creatures. The Snake Men Queen's expression changed slightly. She turned and immediately entered the palace. Boom! In the blink of an eye, a massive beam of light, several times thicker than the ones generated by the Heaven Stage martial warriors, soared from the top of a building in the center of the royal palace. The beam of light merged with the protective screen above, intensifying its brilliance and sealing the newly formed cracks. However, despite witnessing this, Wang Teng did not relax. This poison tide was too terrifying, and it didn't seem like it was ending anytime soon. Now, even the queen of the snake men race had acted personally. The snake men might have exhausted their options. If they couldn't hold it back, at that moment, Wang Ting's gaze sharpened, and he immediately looked toward the castle prison in the distance. Landon moved. After waiting for so long, that guy had finally taken action. But, this guy has been inactive for so long, and now he decides to move. Wang Ting's expression wasn't favorable. The threat of the poison tide had even made him feel uneasy. If they couldn't withstand it, even if Landon found something valuable, they might not be able to take it with them. Wait. Wang Ting was astounded. Did he know that the poison tide is coming? That's impossible. No one can predict the poison tide. Even if he knew it was coming, how would he know that it would pass through this city? That's impossible, Round Ball said. That's true. If he could predict something like this, he'd be a real genius, and he wouldn't be in this situation. Wang Ting nodded. Round Ball was speechless. Well, he's not doing that badly. This is not bad enough. A Stellar Academy student is reduced to sneaking around like this. That's pretty miserable, Wang Ting argued. You make a good point. Round Ball couldn't refute. In no time, there were sounds of explosions from the prison and the pitiful cries and shouts of the snake men inside. Boom. A surge of energy emanated from the entrance of the prison. Wang Teng looked in that direction and saw the prison gate explode, followed by several figures flying out of it. Amid the dust and smoke, a figure walked out calmly, with a cold and indifferent expression. His bald head glistened brightly in the smoke. This was Landon. He's out. Wang Teng muttered to himself but didn't stand up. He continued to sit cross-legged and watched from a distance. The snake men martial warriors around the prison had their attention drawn to the poison tide in the sky and hadn't anticipated a jailbreak. When they saw Landon appearing, they were taken aback. Catch him. Don't let him escape. However, they quickly reacted and rushed towards Landon, launching various attacks at him. Landon snorted coldly, his eyes radiating an icy aura. He pointed his spear in hand. A few snake men martial warriors who were only at the celestial stage started bleeding from their chests. They perished instantly without even being able to scream. The snake men martial warriors further away were surprised by his strength and hesitated to approach. Boom. At this moment, a powerful aura surged from a distance. It was a Cosmos Stage Snake Man martial warrior. Landon squinted. He glanced at the poison tide in the sky with a grave expression. He didn't plan to waste any time and dashed into the palace. He was going into the Snakeman's palace. Wang Teng wasn't surprised by this. After lurking for so long, Landon definitely had a plan in mind. The object of his interest couldn't be found anywhere else. It had to be within the palace. Stop him. The Cosmos Stage Snake Man martial warrior's expression changed as he shouted hurriedly. Their queen was inside the palace, maintaining the protective formation, and they couldn't allow anyone to disturb her. Moreover, the intruder was an escaped prisoner, and letting him enter the palace could lead to catastrophic consequences. Despite their fear, the other Snake Men martial warriors recognized the urgency of the situation and rushed out to intercept Landon. However, the power difference between them and Landon was immense. With a single exchange, several celestial stage snake men were killed. Landon turned into a ray of light and smashed open the palace's gate, charging inside. At that moment, most of the palace guards had gone to help with the evacuation of the citizens, leaving only a few inside, making it a perfect opportunity for Landon. The Cosmos Stage Snake Man behind roared in anger but realized that he couldn't catch up with the escaped prisoner. He was furious. Wang Teng watched this scene and looked up at the poison tide in the sky, cursing his bad luck. In the end, he had no choice but to get up and chase after Landon. Chapter 1967 Azure Sea Pearl. Wang Teng strikes. 1. Landon is troublesome. Wang Teng maintained a low profile and trailed behind Landon and the Cosmos Stage Snake Man, staying hidden. He was making his way toward the palace while complaining to himself. The poison tide outside worried him greatly, and yet, this guy had chosen to escape during this crisis. That was troublesome. Even he didn't dare to do this. But now, there was no choice but to follow Landon. The guy had made his move, and Wang Ting had to keep up. If things got dire, he could always attempt to blend in with the snake men. He had heard about an underground refuge in the northwest area. It should be able to withstand the poison tide. The snake men were probably more accustomed to dealing with the poison tide than outsiders like him. Wang Ting didn't know how Landon would deal with the poison tide. Landon sped through the palace and snake men martial warriors occasionally rushed out to stop him, but he eliminated them all. Boom. The Cosmos stage snake man was infuriated. He waved his curved blade and slashed wildly. He no longer cared about potentially damaging the palace. If that prisoner managed to break into the restricted areas of the palace, the queen wouldn't forgive him. Landon's expression changed slightly. He maneuvered within the palace's buildings to evade the attacks, refusing to engage with the snake man. Bastard! The snake man martial warrior roared in anger. You coward, fight with me. Landon snorted in disdain. He viewed a native snake man as insignificant, deeming a battle with the martial warrior meaningless. The snake man was infuriated by Landon's response, shaking with anger, and he continued attacking recklessly. Did the snake man go crazy from anger? Wang Ting trailed behind, pondering this in amusement. Landon is also incredibly bold to charge in so brazenly, Roundball said. He must have known that no one has the time to deal with him right now, Wang Tang replied. I suspect that he knows that the poison tide is coming. This guy seems to have come well prepared. It does seem that way. Roundball didn't argue with Wang Teng this time, acknowledging that something was indeed amiss. Landon navigated through a complex path within the palace, breaking through numerous snakemen's defenses. He showed no mercy toward the surrounding structures, directly destroying them and charging forward. Watching this, the pursuing snakeman was trembling with fear, veins popping on his forehead. Huh, do you see what's in his hand? Roundball suddenly exclaimed. It seems like a bug. Wang Ting furrowed his brow and used his real eye ability, a bug-like star beast with earth attributes, probably of emperor-level strength. I can't see anything special about it. Why do I feel that Landon seems to be purposefully searching for something inside the palace? Roundball asked. Are you saying it's related to that bug? Wang Ting pondered. Maybe. I'll check what kind of bug it is. Damn, in this poison erosion world, even looking up information is so inconvenient, Roundball complained. Wang Teng didn't pay much attention to Roundball's complaints because, at this moment, Landon's figure vanished after entering a large hall. Sir. Many planetary stage and celestial stage snake men martial warriors gathered around him. Find him. You must find him. The Cosmos stage snake man shouted. Yes. The surrounding snake men quickly spread out, searching for Landon's whereabouts. However, it appeared that Landon had vanished completely, and no matter how hard they looked, they couldn't find a trace of him. In the end, the Cosmos stage snake man could only reluctantly leave a few martial warriors to guard the main hall. He, along with others, wore a grave expression as they hastily scoured elsewhere. He deemed that Landon had already departed and was hiding somewhere else. A prisoner hiding within the palace was no small matter. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. If they didn't find the escaped prisoner, he, as the chief guard, would be in deep trouble. Wang Teng didn't leave. He sensed that Landon was hiding in this palace. He didn't disappear. However, Landon's method of concealment was extremely skillful, fooling all the snake men and making them unable to find him. At this moment, they were close to the central area of the snake men palace. Clearly, Landon didn't want to be trailed any longer, so he took this opportunity to shake off the pursuing snake men. Wang Ting glanced at the sky. The poison tide, dark and overwhelming, displayed no signs of dispersing. Countless poisonous creatures fell upon the protective formation, and the endless dark green mist continuously corroded the formation, causing it to tremble incessantly. The sky had completely darkened, giving the scene an apocalyptic feel as if it were the end of the world. The snake men martial warriors all stared at the sky in horror. Compared to the poison tide, the intrusion of a prisoner into the palace appeared less significant. It was precisely because of this situation that Landon had the opportunity to infiltrate the palace. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, with the intervention of the Heaven Stage martial warriors, Landon wouldn't have been able to enter the palace area. Not to mention the fact that the queen was also inside the palace. At this moment, Landon emerged from a concealed spot within the palace, not alerting the snake men outside. He silently departed, continuing his infiltration deeper into the heart of the palace. Chapter 1968 Azure Sea Pearl. Wang Ting strikes. 2. Wang Ting closely followed behind. He felt a sense of urgency and believed that the protective formation above them wouldn't hold much longer. The poison tide this time was particularly terrifying, perhaps something that wouldn't be encountered for centuries. Wang Ting couldn't help but feel unlucky. Damn it, why did he have to meet everything? Wang Ting cursed in his heart. He was extremely frustrated and glared at Landon, hoping that this individual could provide some good news, or else he might just end up dealing with him himself. Landon stopped in his tracks and glanced around him with a frown. Something didn't feel right. However, when he scanned the area, he didn't discover anything unusual. Could it just be my imagination? Landon mumbled to himself, and without thinking too much about it, he continued his dash towards the central palace. A pillar of light shot into the sky from the top of the palace, sustaining the protective array. The queen of the Snake Man race was there too. Landon was aware of all this, but he had no other choice but to proceed. Fortunately, the outbreak of the poison tide presented a rare opportunity for him, the only opportunity he would get. Still, the poison tide above him was deeply unsettling, and he couldn't afford to waste time. He needed to acquire that item as quickly as possible and find a hiding place. Soon, Landon arrived at the central palace and concealed himself in a corner to observe. This was a massive and majestic palace, occupying a vast area, larger than any of the other outside halls. The palace had a pointed roof, and it was intricately carved with serpents. These serpents were depicted coiling around columns and adorning the eaves, almost everywhere you looked. These snake men like to worship serpents, Wang Ting thought to himself. After all, the snake men have half of the serpent bloodline, Roundball said. However, only those unique and powerful serpent bloodlines can merge with human bloodlines to give rise to the snake men. Wang Ting nodded. He felt that he was learning something new. Standing near the palace, a faint sense of pressure emanated from the central pillar of light, diffusing in all directions. King Ting couldn't help but look up at the central palace with its towering spire. He saw the coiled serpent carved onto the spire, its massive mouth wide open, and the pillar of light seemed to be spewing out from it, creating a surreal sight. This should be the queen's inner palace. Staying hidden in the distance, he activated his real eye and observed. He saw that several Cosmos Stage martial warriors were guarding the palace. To his surprise, he noticed a familiar figure, Zagu, the defiant snake man who had refused to submit to the queen. Wang Ting couldn't help but ponder Zaga's fate, wondering if he had ultimately surrendered to the queen. Speaking of the queen, she was quite beautiful indeed. If it were up to him, he might begrudgingly accept the chance to bask in her presence. However, the notion of becoming a slave to the queen was entirely out of the question. King Ting's sole desire was to experience the queen's majestic authority, with no other ulterior motives in mind. There are so many Cosmos Stage martial warriors. Will Landon be able to enter? Wang Ting was puzzled. Landon's concealing skill allowed him to evade the Cosmos Stage martial warriors and enter the palace successfully. Compared to the talents from the stellar academies, these snake men martial warriors were still lacking. They were all at the Cosmos Stage, so they weren't as powerful as Landon. As for Wang Ting, since Landon managed to enter, he could too. In the palace, a cold aura filled the air, and the surroundings were adorned with numerous snake men sculptures and murals. These statues were crafted from a black stone with emerald gems embedded in their eyes, giving them an eerie, lifelike appearance as though they were watching every intruder. The walls and pillars were also constructed from dark stone or metal materials, exuding a chilling atmosphere. Wang Ting took careful, silent steps, making no noise that might give away his presence. The palace was too spacious, and any sound could be magnified to the extreme. A cosmos stage or heaven stage martial warrior could pick up the slightest sound and discover him. Landon was equally cautious, ensuring that he didn't make any noise. He managed to evade the patrols throughout the palace, slowly progressing towards the deeper areas of the palace. The palace's interior was vast and complex, and it was easy to get lost without a guide. However, Landon appeared to know exactly where he was going, navigating through the numerous corridors with a clear purpose. Soon, a faint light emerged at the end of one of the corridors, catching Wang Ting's attention. Landon carefully approached. Surprisingly, there were no guards at the end of the corridor. Walking out of the corridor, Landon entered a spacious hall with a towering throne at its center. A mesmerizing snakewoman was coiled upon the throne, her alluring figure reclined in a way that emanated an irresistible charm. A simple movement released a captivating allure that was nothing short of terrifying. Her serpentine lower half swayed slightly, exuding a unique and exotic allure. Undeniably, the queen possessed a charisma that surpassed all other snakewomen. Even someone as resolute as Landon couldn't help but be momentarily captivated upon seeing her up close. Fortunately, Wang Ting had already seen Little Chinga and Kang Yu, two charismatic snakewomen, and he had developed some immunity. Therefore, the queen didn't affect him as profoundly. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.